All right.
Good thing we don't have a video camera here. You guys don't understand what just happened.
You can't see the fucking the fake sweat you've just applied on yourself. Anyway, this is Luke Hamilton tonight. I'm Luke Hamilton. I'm sitting down with my good buddy Neil.
What's up, everybody?
And we're gonna talk fucking mad shit.
That's what we do.
Again.
That's what we do. I'm just happy that he actually had me back after last week. I figured I overstayed my welcome.
I think we got off the rails a little bit.
The way we should, I guess.
The last one.
It's.
But there was still a lot of. We talked about a lot of good stuff. Very interesting shit.
Does it not stand to reason to tell any prospective listener that we don't follow any structure or content to this particular? We're trying our best to impose a structure on it without actually outlining anything.
Well, to me, for these shows, I feel like podcasts that have a rigid structure are actually kind of boring.
They are.
I love the very open-ended, anything could happen, just go with the flow. It's a lot more entertaining in my opinion, and that's what I'm trying to do with this show. It's just I want to have people on that can just speak their mind and do whatever, right?
Yeah.
Just like my other buddy, I showed you the the podcast we did a couple of weeks ago or the last week. And he's just going for it. It's very entertaining. It's very interesting. And, he has some good points, and there's a lot of things that I have to, I got to talk him down from the ledge sometimes. But, it's all in good fun, for sure.
It's all in the form of entertainment. You can say that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to, have, an audio book here. It's not all, distilled information.
Oh, hell no.
But, yeah. Yeah.
I think that
it's definitely an entertainment show.
Sure,
that's what I'm trying to do.
And I think anybody who would be listening to this show right now could probably appreciate it because they're probably the embodiment of exactly what it is that you're saying right now. Mm-hmm. Therefore, they've probably arrived at this point by wanting a little bit of randomness and a little bit of this and that. But those people, conversely, should probably not be expecting structure. So I'm hoping that they kind of go with the flow and. It makes a lot of sense, not making sense sometimes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, 100. Give it 100. That's what it's all about.
That's kind of like the good thing about life, I guess.
Sure. Being
but laugh, have some fun, not take it too seriously.
I think there's many good things about life, I would say.
Yeah.
But not taking I mean...
not taking it too seriously.
The ability to retain important information and not let it destroy you. That's kind of my existence, I would say. When you're imbued with a whole bunch of different understandings about certain things, and those things are a little bit angering, it takes a little bit of time to rationalize with yourself about how things work and to be able to introduce anything that gets presented to you with a very, very strict measure of non-bias. Bias is too easy nowadays. It's
bias is very easy.
It's a real thing.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it earlier with people get stuck into their own group.
Oh yeah,
the way social media makes people just
oh yeah,
pick a side. You stay in the side.
Yep.
The only thing the algorithm lets you see is your idea, your ideology.
They become your
friends.
And
you go into it.
They become your friends. You're disassociated with all other information outside of what it is that's being presented to you. And the algorithm does such a good job of making sure that you're not going to step outside your bounds. You are once you start to enter, information into the search bar on YouTube, it starts to pick apart who you are. It starts to, create a psychological profile. It's not only just what is this person watching, but when do they watch it? Mm-hmm. Are they particularly vulnerable to certain things at certain times? Should we insert an ad about this here because we know that they become more sensitive at a certain time of night or during the month? Stuff like that.
When do you take a shit?
Yeah, well, there you go.
That's apparently something that Facebook knows.
The thing is, they know you're taking a shit because it's the only time you log off of YouTube. Normally, you're just watching right up. Some people like to take a shit and go right through and watch their video. I find it slightly uncomfortable. I prefer to pause the video while I'm dropping a deuce. while I'm dumping dookie. It's cool.
Definitely different.
To each their own.
I letting it ride.
It's a question of how long you're willing to stay on the toilet. Are you one of those like 25-minute brothers go down a rabbit hole on fucking Google?
Well, the funny thing is that if I let a YouTube video ride while I'm taking a shit, I will end up being in there for 40 minutes.
I could.
But if that was not the case, then I'd be a normal human being.
I could tell the audience something pretty crazy right now, and this is absolutely true. I prefer to watch YouTube in the shower. In the morning, I actually...
Okay, how?
I leave it leaned up against the very back wall of my shower with the shower curtain just hanging off to the side, and I'm usually listening to somebody. I'm not watching something, I'm listening to something.
Okay, so the screen isn't in there with you.
Well, I mean, it's like a couple talking heads, but there's nothing visually appealing. There's nothing... You're not fixated on the visual aspect of it. It's more like the it's the oratorical respects. So, as long as I can crank up the volume and listen to it while the shower is beaming off on my head, I actually do that quite a bit, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, not so much with the shit, though. I'll be honest with you.
Not with the shit.
No, it's yeah. I think most people are the other way around. I think they're probably the other way around. Who does that in the shower? I mean, really?
I definitely I'll listen to music and podcasts maybe.
Yeah.
When I'm in the shower.
Yeah. Does the new generation?
But I'll have I'll set up a Bluetooth speaker or something. I have a Bose speaker, right?
Nice.
So I'll connect that to my phone. I'll listen to some tunes while I'm in the shower. Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty normal.
I think so.
These days. Yeah.
I'm a pretty decent singer. If I'm not YouTubing in the shower, it's usually because I'm singing something.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You actually sing in the shower.
The best time to harmonize your chords is in the morning, If you go to sing at 5 o'clock and you haven't sang for 12 days and you go to sing at 5 o'clock on a random day, it's all off. You got to get those chords. You got to exercise the chords. The shower's a good time to exercise the chords.
Yeah, you can't just jump into it.
You can't. It takes 15 to 20 minutes to get everything lubed up in there, so to speak. Right? Get it all working properly.
I remember when I was recording vocals for these two songs I was doing a couple of years ago, and I didn't know how to sing at all, but I just went for it, and I had to learn so many things right off the bat.
Yes.
About how to take care of your voice and how to do it properly.
Oh yeah.
There's tons of things that I didn't know, and tons of tricks that I thought were kind of bunk. Until my buddy who was producing it told me and said oh yeah, if you do a couple of push-ups and run up and down the hall, you'll actually project more. I'm all right, I'll try it. And then I went and tried it, and this is fucking working.
Yep.
This is really working.
Yeah.
And then he's actually a shot of scotch loosens up your vocal cords.
Yeah, no.
And then I did it. I'm oh my god. It's actually fucking working. It does loosen up your vocal cords, and I'm this man. When I took radio, when I was in college taking radio, that they said that was the number one thing you don't do. Yep. Don't drink alcohol.
Yeah.
But then that apparently that's a staple in the music industry.
Well,
small shot of scotch while you're doing vocals. Fuck.
Well, it's not the small shot of scotch theory, but as well as I do. I mean, if you go to the bar and you buy a pint of high nitrite craft beer, you can lose your voice. So alcohol definitely is probably something just for the sake of experimentation and the possibility of something going wrong that they're just telling you, no, don't do that. But my understanding of vocal cords came by way of reading a journal article where I was absolutely taken back by the number of prominent artists who actually had to get vocal cord surgery. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah,
They're not taught to treat their vocal cords the right way. And they're putting such an incredible level of stress, especially the 5-octave singers are putting such a high level of stress on their vocal cords that it's actually causing them to splice and partition, and then they're not getting the proper reverberation out of them. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. I had no idea. I actually learned that by way of reading a journal article about Italian opera singers and how they regulate the use of they're trained to regulate the use of their voice to make sure, because it's a really hard profession on your vocal cords, right? So so that's part of their training, to learn how to minimize the amount of stress on their vocal cords.
It's incredibly important.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of like more high profile like rock stars definitely.
Yes.
They've had to stop or take breaks.
Yep.
In their career because
cancel tours.
Their voice is just fucked up.
Cancel tours and shit
because
of it, right?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. The singer for Protest the Hero, which like that shirt.
No, it isn't.
Over there on the wall.
It's accompanying the white towel, not the orange towel. We'll be going back to that in future episodes.
Yeah, I mean that singer, he blew his fucking voice out trying to do vocals for the new album. I mean they had to delay it like a year.
Wow.
Yeah, because he just blew it out.
You know, it's kind of weird when I'm thinking back on it. Like before, I had an appreciation for what it all meant. Like, you know, you have like, see, I was never an alternative guy. At least for a very short period of my life, I ever listened to alternative music. But the lead singer of Linkin Park, with that multi-tonal,
he was really pushing it.
Yeah, huge, right?
Very intense.
Very intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know if there's a place for that shit anymore. Like look at today's music. Today's music is very light. It's light on content. It's light on stress level. It's just a sanitized version of what music used to be, right? We were talking about this earlier, how like music is void of content and a message now. Mm-hmm. You know, like when both of us were growing up, which wasn't a whole long time ago, right? You know, you would appreciate a genre because it brought across a message. There would be something being said in the music. The music was presenting you with ideas that were tangible. There were things that you could take from the music and think about them. Like now, we've reduced music to really just being noise.
Yeah, in a certain way. Like it's melodic noise. It's kind of comforting, but it's completely void of any substance.
Neither of us grew up with music that we preferred to define as comfortable.
No. What we have now is like elevator music.
That's exactly what it is.
Where it's like, oh yeah, it's great. Mm-hmm. Like it's on in the background.
Yes.
You could put any Post Malone song on in the background and it's fucking fine.
Interchangeable lyrics, interchangeable beats.
Absolutely nobody is sitting down and listening to a Post Malone record start to finish by themselves.
Garbage.
And enjoying it for what it is. No, it's something you just throw on at a party because you're a fucking idiot 17-year-old and you're trying to get sloshed on Smirnoff.
He's, in my opinion, he emblemizes the perfect sanitized final product of, you know, the preferable outcome of music, so to speak. We were talking about this earlier. Like, so for our audience, I actually grew up with it. You know, for the most part, a hip hop influence, probably since the time I was 12 or 13. And we were talking about this earlier. How you know, hip hop in the, you know, mid-late 90s when I was growing up, when I was that age, it was it had a very, very distinct message, you know. You knew what it was that you were actually being presented with. It might not have been your struggle, but man, they had some foresight, because I'll tell you what, you got a bunch of people like that are like me, white and semi-affluent, or at least, you know, reasonable people who are now buying into the idea that this the political message is still resonating within society, but the music isn't emulating it anymore. Right? Like back in the 90s, you had all this political messaging, especially in hip hop, where, you know, it was the repression of African Americans by you know, the legal system, police, you know, unfair treatment by judges, you know, the trials and tribulations of growing up in a neighborhood that's been all but forgotten by your government, right? And you're kind of left to your survival of the fittest own devices and shit like that. There was a real message to the music. There was a struggle going on there. And even though you weren't part of that struggle, you were made to feel like you could
become part of it.
You could understand. You could come to terms and at least partially understand it.
Yeah.
Right. What do we have now in terms of, like, what does music leave you with now? I can't remember a song in the last 5 to 7 years that I remember the lyrics of, because usually when I try to remember the lyrics of a song, it has.
Oh, dude, like Hotline Bling, man.
Well, okay. All right. Okay. No. I mean, yeah, no.
Number one in all countries.
I don't like it. I don't like admitting it, but I actually know probably too many Drake songs off the top of my head. Like, I could literally probably go nuts on this microphone, but I mean, is Drake the only thing I would listen to? No, he's the part of me that's represents the portion of my being that is given up on meaningful music. Right?
He's a very baffling person to me.
Brilliant.
I mean, he has more number one hits than Elvis. He has more number one hits than anybody ever.
Why don't you?
And I don't know if anybody's actually really talking about that. That's kind of going under the radar.
Just say what you know to be true, is that he's quickly encroaching on being the most popular artist of all time.
Somehow.
That's insane.
And not a lot of people talk about it.
No. He's Canadian. He's Canadian. He's Canadian.
It's crazy.
Talk about that shit.
Yeah, fuck.
He's behind the scenes on producing every hip hop song that's out there now, and dumping albums at a rate of like 1.5 a year or one a year. I mean, like the guy's. You got if you can say anything about a guy like Drake, you can say that the dude is committed. Right?
Yeah,
you may like the music, you may not like the music. At the end of the day, there's a lot of people on both sides, but he's
definitely got a work ethic.
He's got a work ethic.
If you're gonna go that fucking hard,
especially if
you
you're to start when he did, right? Like he started, 2009, 2008, 2009. That's late in the hip hop game.
Oh yeah.
Like not a lot of artists have come out of this time frame and been memorable.
He just really capitalized on like the new model.
Yes.
Of whatever hip hop is, but yeah, really, really interesting character, and like it's in a way it's good to see that like he still lives in Canada.
Yeah, he never gave up.
A lot of people leave Canada if they get to that point. I mean, Justin Bieber did.
Yeah,
and then he was banished. From the States.
Well, there's the legendary story of Neil Young too, right? Like he's
he
Canada's own who moves to Los Angeles, and then Canadians are just like, well, fuck you, buddy.
Yeah.
Like you're American, we get it, get lost. Like
you bailed.
Yeah, you bailed. You made a committed bail.
Yep.
You made a committed bail. You did it all the way.
A lot of actors do that too.
Yeah. Sure.
Michael Myers.
Yeah,
he's gone.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like you're gonna
Ryan Reynolds.
It's not like you're.
He still kind of panders as Canadian, but he lives in L.A.
Yeah, but you're not going to see Ryan Reynolds sauntering the streets of Niagara Falls where he grew up. Like you're not going to see that.
No.
They're way too important for that shit. No way.
Whereas with Drake, I mean,
rubbing shoulders with slob tourists. No way. Drake has quotes.
No, he's too famous to be like around plebs at this point.
Same thing with Drake. Drake has courtside seats at the Raptors. Toronto Raptors game.
Well, he's gotten to the certain point of fame where it's like it's gonna be fucking hard to be around regular people.
Pretty much.
So
Yeah.
I saw a video a couple nights ago of someone spotted him in downtown Toronto.
Oh no!
And he was like leaving. He was leaving like some club or something like that, and he was getting into his like private Hummer limo thing that was like guided by his guards, his entourage. It's like this guy cannot be around normal people anymore.
You didn't expect the story to be Drake makes appearance in downtown Toronto at 3 a.m. in sweatpants to buy a shawarma, did you?
No, never. No.
Give me a fucking break.
No, he's getting that delivered.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He's got to skip the dishes platinum card.
No, he's like the same as Johnny Depp. Like Johnny Depp can't walk down the fucking street.
Johnny Depp is not walking. If he does, he's walking down the street in costume. He's so good. He's
specific costumes that he can have.
In
order to go down the street.
Fucking right.
But he would never do that because then nobody would notice him.
Yeah. No.
He loves the attention.
I don't know if he does or not. Does he? Is he an egomaniac in your opinion?
I think so.
I think he's a little bit more.
The guy owns 30 houses.
Yeah, but I think he stays out of the spotlight in between his movies and shit more so than a lot of. You never hear any really negative highlights about Johnny Depp. No,
that's true.
he kind of keeps his nose clean.
Other than like the obvious like he owns 30 houses that he can barely afford.
We're not on this show to talk about how people over leverage themselves.
Yeah,
That's the choices that
He's
they
going
make
a little
in their
bit
lives.
far.
Sure.
Yeah, his daily wine budget is like thousands of dollars.
I just like
for whatever
just
reason.
to throw out a hypothetical though. I mean, if all of your money is tied into illiquid assets, real estate or whatever have you, these are still viable assets. All you'd have to do is sell 15 or 20 of your houses. That's going to put him right back on top. Even if he's financially turbulent right now, if you owned 30 different pieces of illiquid assets.
He could sell them.
Sure.
But that means he's got to give up a lot of shit.
Okay.
I don't know if he's willing to do that. It's like when Nick Cage started buying castles.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was a weird phase.
He went completely fucking insane, bought castles, and he went bankrupt.
He's still
because
insane.
he bought castles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy bastard.
Thinking that inevitably they would be a good real estate investment or something.
Yeah.
Castles don't really appreciate the same way your house does. I don't know if anybody is thinking about building a castle out there, but it's not a good investment.
No.
There's a lot of upkeep. I think the upkeep is probably the same amount as you paid for the castle outright every year. I'm just spitballing.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
It's a weird thing to get into. I don't know how you could even like
plus
want a castle, but like Nick Cage has never made like great decisions.
No, he's an idiot.
Throughout his life. I mean, like think about the late '90s hair plug.
Oh Jesus.
Nick Cage.
No.
Oh, it's brutal. He went from bald to slightly not bald.
Yes.
To completely bald.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
what was that? What was that? That
was that supposed to like be beneficial for your career? Like you look like more insane each year.
What's the movie where they were on Alcatraz and the prisoners had access to nerve missiles and they were gonna fire it at San Francisco? What was that called? That
I have no idea.
So when you're talking about the contrast from Nicolas Cage's hair, I explicitly remember that one movie. I can't remember what the hell the name of it is. And so the baldness and all that shit. And then by the time he did that Marvel movie, the guy with Ghost Rider, by the time he did,
oh yeah,
by the
that
time
was a Marvel movie.
by the time he did Ghost Rider, he had a full head of hedge.
Yep.
And it's no.
Yeah.
Listen, just
what's the
you would.
I'm completely blanking on the
radio
name now.
silence, buddy. That's why I tried to step around that landmine.
No.
I explicitly have. I actually had a second last week where I stepped on the landmine. I was trying to refer to the Kurds in the Middle East, and I literally just completely
you had an aneurysm.
Fuck blanked out, and
Yeah.
I literally I literally just had to. Because I can see where that's going. It's like 5 seconds of fumble, fucking nothing good.
And I'm just trying to remember the fucking name of the movie. It's the biggest one that he ever did.
Yeah,
it's not National Treasure, is it?
No.
What the fuck is that?
Wait, are we thinking about a different movie? I was
of Nick Cage.
Yeah, but I was so the movie that you had me thinking that I
not the movie that you're thinking of,
Yeah.
but I'm talking about that movie where he has like a very robust head of hair.
Oh boy, I do know that by the time that Prison Break movie came out, where he was like he was a fucking special agent on a plane that was carrying a whole bunch of why am I see
it's impossible. The truth he's done so many fucking movies that you can't even remember what he's done.
Well, no, and the truth of the matter is we're making ourselves look like assholes because neither of us are considered aficionados on Hollywood pop culture. We're literally just kind of going back and trying to reference movies that we remember, and we're doing a hell of a bad job doing so.
It's too hard.
You know what? And the other part is you don't care. Like you're only partially invested in trying to remember this shit.
The weird thing is like we've watched them and we just can't remember them. Which maybe means that they weren't good enough.
I don't know. I thought the one with the prison and the nerve agent and the missiles, it was okay. I watched it a few times. I thought it was okay. It had Sean Connery in it, who's a...
Fuck, I don't even know.
Yeah, I know.
I can't even...
That fucking cocksucker.
whatever. Nick Cage, I don't know.
Winners go home and fuck the prom queen. See, I can remember
that.
I can remember the lines. I
But
just can't
nothing
remember
else.
the fucking movie. I don't.
You know that Nick Cage got Johnny Depp his start in Hollywood?
I'm not surprised.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's an incestuous level of.
He demanded that he got into acting because Johnny Depp wasn't trying to be an actor.
Yeah, well,
He was in a band when he moved to L.A. and then he went to a party and did a bunch of blow with Nick Cage. And he's like, "Oh, you can be a really good actor."
I'm not sure that's the point in time that you want to be taking
like,
Johnny
alright.
Depp's advice seriously. Or Nick Cage's advice seriously. I don't know if that's.
At that time, I don't know.
Yeah,
He's probably not as crazy.
I don't think so.
It was the 80s.
So everybody was crazy, but because of the fact that everybody was crazy, it was pretty normal. That's kind of what it boils down to.
In comparison, yeah.
Yeah, the 80s.
Everything was fine.
The 80s was just out of control cocaine usage and free sex. I mean, free sex was coming to an end by the start of the decade, but people were still doing it.
At a time where the entire idea of life was partying, seems like a normal thing to do.
And synthesized music.
When a legitimate career path was drop everything and move to LA and see what happens,
Yes.
seems like a all right thing to do.
Yeah, it's okay. But I think we touched on it earlier today that, kind of bringing it back into a political sense, it's like chasing the Hollywood dream nowadays is not what it used to be, right?
No, not at all. Everybody in Hollywood is on contract.
Contract work.
It's very, very hard.
Yes.
It's very hard.
And as much as...
All media is like that. I've had a ton of friends that have gone to college for different jobs in the media, and it's all contract work. Like, it's just a gig economy.
Yep.
Yeah, you said it like earlier on tonight. Everyone's working on this gig economy, and then you have to work on your personal brand.
Yep.
It's like you have to be your own fucking thing, and you have to sell yourself to everybody all the time.
Yeah.
You're just a commodity.
Yeah. It gets awfully exhausting after
Yeah.
a while, I would say, right?
And like, who wants to live like that? Who wants to like forego a pension,
It was nobody's
health
choice.
care, or whatever? Like, it's just,
It was
work day to day and hope everything works out. That's great. That's why you went in debt going to college for.
Yeah.
That's the dream. Go in debt and have no security,
Yeah.
and then die.
Yeah. And it was only a matter of time before it hit some of the most beloved artifacts of our culture. I mean, Hollywood for a long time was insulated from the machinations of what was happening in the real economy. It's only more recently where we were talking about this earlier. You take some of the syndicated shows from the 90s, your Seinfelds or what have you. These shows, they had dedicated casts of people. These people were employed by the idea of Seinfeld for like 12 years, and that was their only job.
Because NBC, like, they would schedule the show. They would pay for the show to be on for like at least 5 years.
Yes.
So you could plan like the whole season, everything like that.
Yeah.
It would actually make it a better show because you knew what you were going to do.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. You were able to create direction because of the stability.
Yeah. And
right?
keep everybody on, keep the same writers.
Right.
There was no like...
Yeah, turnaround every year.
There's no turnaround about
Right.
that. Now it's like if a show... Like if Netflix buys a show, they schedule it for one season, and then they have a group of writers, they have a cast that's already set up. They film the first season, maybe it's a hit. They book it for another season. It's like, good luck getting those writers. Maybe they're doing something else. Maybe they're working for SNL now. Like,
Yeah.
Like how do you know?
Yeah.
It's been
That's right.
It's been 10 months since you did the first season. Who knows what people are doing now?
And
Cast gone, whatever.
it's
Like,
kind
who
of
knows?
it's kind of just like everything else in our society now. Like I said, for the longest time, it seemed like they were almost insulated from what was happening in the real economy. Now the real economy is catching up to our most beloved cultural icons. be it Hollywood, right? These they're not gonna they're gonna suffer the same fate as everybody else in the economy from now on. This is not going to be it's not a false trend to see it happening. And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people out there that don't realize that their contributions, monetary contributions, or patriotistic contributions in terms of patriotism to streaming services like Netflix and Crave is actually contributing to the downfall of movies as a legitimate art form, a legitimate form of art-based media. Right? They're diluting the point of what it is. It's creative art. But they're not respecting the process the same way. And, the really fucked up part about all this is, like, we're talking about companies that are making $1 million productions here, who anticipate that because they're putting millions of dollars into their production, that they're going to end up generating millions of dollars worth of revenue. This seems to me to be the last part of the economy that requires thinking about how we can cut costs and do all these benefit analysis with all these low-level people who are now living, 5 deep in a 2-bedroom apartment in Los Angeles.
It's such a luxury, like the entire economy of entertainment. It's kind of insane to me that it would get to that point where the quality is diminished just because, like, they can't make those returns.
Yes.
But it's a complete luxury.
Yeah. No, it is. It is. It's a big problem. I always, it kind of makes me sound like an old school sentimentalist, but like I harken back for the days that, you had a real script to follow. You had actors who you chose for roles based on how well you thought that they fit the description of the role. You had locational shooting. You had hundreds and hundreds of support people that were employed by, your whatever it was you were doing, be it a movie or a TV series or what have you. Those people were stably employed. It was considered good employment. But just like everything else in our society now, it's been hollowed out, and it's a shadow reflection of what it once was. And you hear these stories when you read. I've read several articles based on this from people that started off as, low-level interns, so to speak. And, the idea of being a low-level intern, driving from Arkansas to Los Angeles in 1975 to take a shot to become a low-level intern, if you were able to make it as a low-level intern, there was a good chance that you were going to be able to move yourself up in the system, that you were going to eventually become something that you aspired to be. But you read the stories of these guys now, because they're not employed consistently. They're not employed by the same people all the time. Every time they accept a new contract or a new piece of piecework, they start off at the bottom again. There's no mobility. There's no mobility. The wages, because of the precarity of the actual profession now, are legendarily low, and the cost of living in Los Angeles is outrageously high. Which is, a story that plays itself out over and over again in many cities in the world where normal, average people like you and I simply can't afford to live.
Yeah, incredibly expensive.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the way it goes, though. I mean, the demand is there.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely.
For a lot of cities.
Yeah,
obviously.
Well, you have your cities that probably. You have cities like New York. A city like New York is it already has a mixed bag of different things that are going on there, different socioeconomic classes and all this stuff. I feel like it's a much more harmonious mix of things that are going on than, say, a city like San Francisco, where you're talking about like the levers of supply and demand being driven by people who make, 40 times the national average wage. And now you have people who are making $35,000 a year shitting on the sidewalks. No, I mean, honestly, it's a fucking ridiculous thing to think that we've got to a point now where we've literally let the whole system go. It's just whoever can survive. Whoever can survive for themselves are the people who can continue on in this ridiculously, the end times of this empire. But as far as the average person, it's fend for yourself. It's survival of the fittest. It's you could be that guy shitting on the sidewalk in San Francisco. Could easily be could easily be us.
It could be you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could be anybody.
It's very little.
If you take the risk to travel across the country, or move there from Canada, even in the hopes that you're gonna make the next big tech company or something like that, you're gonna go down and you're gonna be Zucker.
Here, I can give you a word of advice. Here, I'll give you a word of advice. 95% of you people who aspire to be that person who moves to San Francisco are gonna end up in South Central Oakland doing a whole bunch of drugs and going to raves. I guarantee it.
As you should.
Absolutely.
When you're down there.
That's called the real living.
Obviously.
I know most of the people out there don't want to hear that. That's
No.
That's too real. That's real talk.
The fact is, most people aren't diligent enough and autistic enough to be able to run that shit.
Ooh.
Like,
no, it's true.
I don't say autism as like a negative thing, but like clearly.
Oh no! I was just interested that you would go
But clearly, you see like an interview with Mark Zuckerberg, and it's like he's on another level.
Yes.
Like that's a guy who like probably never has fun. He's just always thinking. He's always thinking about the future and like executing plans for his benefit.
In between,
he's on the spectrum, 100%. You know.
In
Jack Dorsey's the same way.
Yeah.
Like head of Twitter.
Yeah.
Like they're not regular human beings.
No.
To be able to head these companies.
No.
They're not just like clugging beer on a Friday night and having a good time. Like
I'm not throwing opinions about that out. I'm fully of the opinion that you can slam beers on a Friday night and still be a fully functioning human being at the end of the day. The degree to which that's going to get you to the head of a company like Amazon or Google or Facebook, I'm not entirely sure. But I think you're right. I think these guys are definitely not. They're married to their businesses. But a guy like Zuckerberg, he spends just as much time putting out legal brush fires as he does anything else.
Yeah, nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
He's become an apologist.
But in the beginning, it was like he could do no wrong.
But
he was going for
more
it.
Recently, he's become an apologist for a platform that's increasingly being looked at as being out of control.
Yeah. I think the last what was it? Was like a Senate hearing or something?
Yeah.
A couple years ago.
Yeah.
Last year maybe.
Yeah.
The one where everyone was making the water drinking memes. Well, because he was drinking water like a robot.
Like a robot, yeah.
Yeah. But that was a really weird one actually, because he was kind of admitting like, I don't know what's happening anymore. Like he's like, I'm not really in control of this.
So for those of you,
we're just trying our best.
For those of you,
it's like, oh my god, I kind of feel for the guy. Like this is kind of out of his control.
You know what though? I'll tell you this right now. In my opinion, not so much my opinion, but as a matter of fact. Mark Zuckerberg is to his company what the president of the United States is to the political establishment. It's a runaway freight train, and you're the face of it, right?
Yeah.
Behind the scene.
Yeah, true. There's really not a lot you can do. It's just like the people are just running the show.
That's right.
It's like there's no controlling it. It's just it's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to his credit, the people who've taken over Facebook and started to create the direction that it's going in now, for whatever reason, decided not to mutiny him and get rid of him. Whereas most of the time, when your baby gets sabotaged, so to speak, the first thing that the shareholders will do is kick you out. Right?
Well, he's still making all of the right decisions for the shareholders. He's bringing in that money. There's more ads than ever. He's censoring who he needs to censor to make sure those ads still keep coming in.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that it's not like this expansive forum for anybody to say anything that they want, right? They're saying like it's swaying elections and stuff. Like that's totally out of his control. You can't censor like 50% of the population.
No, No.
In order to appease America, and that's only like a tiny fraction of the amount of people who actually use Facebook. You know, he's not like the thing about like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff is like they're not thinking about the states.
Yeah.
Because they operate all over the world.
Well,
so anytime you have those hearings like Zuckerberg had to do last year, like he really at the end of the game, like he doesn't really fucking care what the states have to say about what he's doing with his company. It's an international company that has to do like it has to be okay for everybody around the world. Like it's really an insane thing.
I think, Luke, that he would probably take the process more seriously if he didn't realize that his own government would never roast him. Okay, a Senate hearing is window dressing for the reality that everybody is complicit in what Facebook has become, including the American government. They're the ones who started the whole deal, okay? I keep going back to this. This is all, the entirety of Silicon Valley and everything that it's become was all the brainchild of the CIA. Every little bit of it, right down to the funding, right down to the rationale and the logic for having each particular company, right down to the data dragnet and the capturing of all your data. And the use of that data consequently for surveillance and creating silhouettes of people. That was all done in the late 80s, early 90s for a very specific reason. There's no doubt in my mind that these are all products of the CIA. Every single one of them. Google, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they're all...
It would be a very obvious and very convenient thing for the CIA to get involved in.
Not only involved,
people are willingly putting their entire life story on Facebook.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
You're giving them the
platform. Does that mean that the American government is tracking everyone's Facebook information from all over the world?
It's
because pretty much every country other than China uses Facebook.
Like, to qualify this, right? Like, the amount of data that they're collecting right now on every person, they could never process with the manpower that they have. So unfortunately, even though they've got more data in the history they have more data now than any period of time in the history of humanity, they don't have the manpower to process it. They couldn't just look in on, Luke Hamilton's internet activity if they didn't have any sort of suspicion, because they simply just don't have the time and the manpower for that. There's a lot of things that are happening that are like legitimately nefarious out there. Are they battling the things that are legitimately nefarious? Well, you could argue that too, because look at all the rhetoric about, Russian interference via Facebook and things like that. Like, things that are essentially factually gray. Nobody really knows the real truth, but they're being presented to you as real truths and things like that. Like, they're spending their efforts in places, they've got themselves all over the place. The surveillance dragnet system's got itself all over the place. It can't legitimately surveil you unless they have a reason. And that's not because they need a reason. It's just because they just don't have the manpower to surveil every person in the planet. They can't do it. And even if they could, they're not under legal authority to take any sort of legal action against anybody who's not an American citizen. That would have to fall to the jurisdiction of those countries, and in certain circumstances, it would also overlap with the jurisdiction of the International Police, Interpol. Yeah.
But does that matter?
What do you mean?
Does that matter really?
Like, no, I mean, like, what do you...
Is it like, are they not going to figure out lucrative ways?
Yes.
Shady ways of making things happen for them?
Of course. Yeah.
Like, just because they can't prosecute somebody from another country doesn't mean that they can't, like, tail them.
Or exert influence.
For years. Until they do something that's just shady enough.
Just shady enough.
Like Julian Assange's surprise sex allegation.
Yeah. Then
they crack down.
It should be quantified. Like the number one question you get after you present the entire world is under a surveillance dragnet state. The most common question would be like, how does that affect me? It affects the average person very little. It's the politically politically active people that they're after. It's the next governors of cities or mayors of cities. It's the next, regional council members. It's the next national parliament, Senate members. It's the next leaders of the major countries.
That's the Amazon Prime argument. It's like, who cares if this thing is listening to everything that you say all day, every day, and recording it and sending it to a database? Like, you don't have anything to hide. It's like, yeah, until you do.
You do. Everybody has every single person listening.
But people are very narrow-minded. They're like, oh, I don't have anything to hide. Like, until something actually fucking happens where you need to hide that.
You got to keep in mind, you're going on the web right now and you enter your credit card information on Amazon right now, and it's not out of the realm of possibilities that sometime in the near future you're going to be getting an email from Amazon saying, hey, by the way, your personal information was compromised. I can't tell you how many times this has happened to me in the last 3 or 4 years. These companies are not responsible with your data. They don't care if it falls into the wrong hands. They have no interest in the protection of your data. Why? Because it costs them too much money in infrastructure. Yeah, that was a good save. We almost had a beer explosion. So yeah, no, you have that problem of companies that have way too much information. They don't have any interest monetarily in preserving the integrity of it, right? So it leads you to a situation where you as a consumer, unfortunately, you're always being compromised, right? Yes, you do have things to hide. You don't want your bank account information being given to somebody who's trying to use it for illicit
that's
means.
an obvious one.
Credit card information. You don't even want your credit score and your social insurance number. Like, there's so many things that people don't actually think about. I will not for one second buy the argument that not just people in general, but every single person has something that they would rather not give to somebody else.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's insane to hear people talk like that. Right? And
they're very narrow-minded, I think. Like, they're not thinking practically. It's like, you've never done anything bad in your life.
That's right.
Ever.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't want somebody to,
I got
see.
I have a buddy who, I went to school with him. I did my finishing school with him. I did my master's degree with him. He's at York right now, doing his PhD, and he was all but canceled by his institution because of his Facebook posts and his usage. The fact that he belonged to a club called the Young Communists. Well, at some point, this became something that was not tolerated. It was intolerable. And his sheer association with something that could be uttered in the same phrase as communism became unpalatable. And and he's a very smart guy. He's very, very smart. He's a good leader. He's a good student. But that's not enough, because
I think he'd be fine now.
You don't know. Tomorrow it could change again.
I don't know. Communism is on the rise, man. I think people are a lot more chill about that now.
Not in the institutions, they're not. There's a bunch of other there's a bunch of other social agendas going on right now. I say social agendas, not political agendas. Political agendas do not dominate the landscape of post-secondary institutions anymore. Social ones do. Think about it. It resonates. Yeah. Okay, you walk on any university campus now, it's disparate social groups that are all fighting for attention, that are all fighting for funding. A lot of them pretend they don't have anything in common with one another. Some of them are just outright hostile to one another. A bunch of groups that were hostile to his particular angle made sure that he wasn't going to have his voice heard. But it's like you said. It's like, yeah, you're right. I don't think it would be as unpopular today. Maybe as unpopular tomorrow. This is the fucked up thing about social media. And this is the fucked up thing about people's attention spans and people's inability to understand what it is that their goals and their aims are. You got a bunch of people that are super angry and they're all fighting each other about nothing. And all you have to do is stoke somebody by saying one specific word, and that's the end of it right there. It's come down to a very, very fragile situation where literally, if I was to give any advice to anybody nowadays, stay the fuck off social media. Don't post anything unless it's lighthearted, it's politically and objectively neutral. don't bother. You're going to end up getting yourself spit roasted by a bunch of angry interest groups.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny that is how social media started.
Yeah.
It was all puppies and avocado toast.
It was really great in the beginning. It really was. It really was. It was organic.
It was organic. It was revolutionary.
Well, you were just
about how much bullshit you could post.
Remember
but
when
now,
you first
but now
started?
it's like everybody has a fucking God-given mission to take down the establishment for but coming from hundreds of different angles.
Yeah.
Everyone has a different opinion of what's wrong with society.
Yes.
And nobody can agree on what that opinion is.
Yeah. Well, they,
It's absolutely insane. I actually miss the days where it was just mind-numbingly stupid people posting pictures of avocado toast.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
It was easier.
When I first started off on Facebook, like I should qualify this by saying I haven't been on Facebook for like 10 years, but when I first started in Facebook, grade 9 or grade 10, I think is when it first came out. And you were just hanging on to those people who would accept your friend request. That was it. Mm-hmm. It was the pure organic joy of knowing somehow you could reach out to somebody in a digital sphere and then they would respond back in kind. Those times are, that's not, if it was the case that social media was still being used for purposes like that, yeah, I think we'd be at a little bit better of a point, but that's not what they're used for anymore. They're used for cowards who are so brave behind a keyboard and are so intolerant of other people and make a life and a habit of sitting on their computer all day spitting vitriol at people that they don't agree with. Mm-hmm. And you know what? They can do it from the comfort of their keyboard, knowing that they never have to bear the consequences of this particular interaction that they have with people. Really, it's just a way of enabling people who hate life and hate other people to hate on others in another way. Is really what it is.
Yeah,
it's what it's become, not what it was.
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
it's what it has become.
Yeah,
but that it comes with the ease of use as well, because back in the day where it wasn't very common for everybody to be on the internet. No, definitely your mom wouldn't just be on the internet on a forum in 2001.
My mom didn't figure out the fucking net until 06, 07.
Yeah. They
10,
weren't
12 years.
They weren't on AOL Messenger or anything back in the day. They weren't figuring that kind of shit out.
God, no.
It was such a niche group, like a tight-knit group in a way. Even though it was still millions of people, it still felt like a tight-knit group of people who all kind of understood what the idea of what the internet was and what it could be, and this liberalism of what the internet is. Yes. Or was. Yeah. It was like the freedom of thought. Yes. The freedom of interaction. Mm-hmm. The freedom of everything. Yeah. Of just even file sharing and shit like that. Doing whatever you wanted. Hacker culture. Hacker culture is kind of cool. Yep, it is. Sometimes it's a little bit shady, but No,
it's got a mystique to it.
The idea of it's pretty it's all for jokes. Yeah. But now it's just become it's so easy for everyone and their fucking mom to get on Instagram or something. Yeah. And now all the normies, because that's another internet meme. The normies are on the internet and they don't know how to use it.
Yep. It's not being used for the right reasons anymore.
They're just talking trash.
It's not a tool anymore.
No, it's not.
It's a vehicle for delivering criticism.
No. The second gigantic corporations like Fox News and CNN started getting their place on the internet, it stopped being the internet.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
Because it wasn't for the people anymore.
That's right.
Starting to get bought up.
Well, we had a kumbaya time there. But, at the very inception of what the internet was supposed to be. The internet wasn't really supposed to be the internet per se. It was supposed to be an intranet. It's supposed to be an intranet of military and spy agency things that were happening.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
The crazy thing.
Right? And then it was sort of ported to the idea of being a multi-tool, a Swiss Army knife, so to speak, for the rest of the population. I would be willing to posit that, of all people that were really happy about the evolution of the internet to something that was a social good, probably the aristocracy was the least receptive to that. I would say the dissemination of information was probably more than they were willing to give away, but are probably pretty proud to see where it ended up, knowing that most people simply don't use it for the right reasons.
I think that there's a way of actually getting back to that. The internet is way more expansive than a lot of people think.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's the whole dark web.
Oh, yeah.
Which was essentially the original internet.
I just bought a human kidney on Tuesday. I think it's coming on Monday. So
yeah. Well, but that's only part of what the dark web is.
Sure.
The dark web is also where all, international interests go.
Yep.
That's what the governments are actually using it for.
Yeah.
The CIA is not on YouTube just being like, "Oh, I'm gonna stage this coup today." No. They use the dark web.
Yes.
They have special VPNs and they actually do that kind of shit. Yep. But there's even deeper levels of the internet where everybody's trash, everybody's deleted posts and everything goes.
Yep.
Nothing on the internet goes away.
Yeah.
It's there and it's accessible. But
yes.
you gotta be really smart about how you go about getting it. But it's actually accessible. A lot of hackers know how to get down to the bowels of the internet. But the internet is a lot bigger, a lot more expansive than people know.
Sure.
And I think there might be a point in time where people really start broadening the horizon of what the internet can actually do.
Yeah.
It's it's still so new. It's 25 years of mass usage, and I think we're at the tip of the iceberg of what people are going to be able to do with the internet.
I also think there's a big difference between the people who grew up with it, when it was in its infancy and kind of saw it for what it was and saw, what the potential would be. We grew up with the technology. You and I from the very first couple of years that home personal computers became a thing, had personal computers in our homes. And consequently the internet for the majority wasn't, it followed pretty closely afterwards. I'm not going to say that during the 56K times that the internet was for everybody. The internet was for people who could pay for an unreasonably fast internet service at that time. The rest of us were just kind of like, hey, watch that picture download for 14 minutes. It's cool.
God, those are the worst.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely, right? Yeah. But I think the people that started off at the very beginning of that technology, the people that were in there on the ground level, the people that were using it, the people that remember what it was before it became what it is now, have a much greater appreciation and probably a lot more, how would you put it? They're a lot more optimistic about the fact that the internet could return to what it once was.
There's a patriotism.
Sure.
To the original internet culture.
Yeah.
It was like an international law.
Yeah. Although,
but between people,
we talked about the AOL discs.
Yeah.
I'll just a little stupid story. I used to pop in those 1 hour or whatever free trials, and I would go on AOL I would go on AOL Messenger, and I would literally be talking to people from the middle of the United States. This was a revolution. I was probably talking to a pedophile. But, you know,
Maybe.
he was masquerading as like an 8-year-old girl, and, you know, it just felt so real. And this was the first time you'd ever experienced this. And it's just like totally great. And, you know, like, yeah, but you didn't know, including the very fact that I just brought up. Like, you were so naive. You didn't understand that there were certain players that were already trying to capitalize on it in negative ways and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Everyone was like naive.
Oh,
really.
God. Oh, it was
at
bad.
At that point.
Really, really bad.
But there was something so like juvenile and kind of fun and free about the original
It was great.
internet.
It was great.
Like even like people in like internet forums used to have flame wars
Yes.
where they would talk mad shit to each other.
Yeah.
And try to piss each other off.
Yeah.
And I mean, we do the same thing now, except those flame wars make it to, the CNN.
We used to have,
And it becomes policy.
We
Back then it was just like if you could talk mad shit about somebody's dumb post on a forum, it was like, you got me. But now it's like someone's going to jail. It's fucking crazy.
Back then, it was all about if you could win a Yo Mama So contest.
Yeah. It was your mama's so fat. Those jokes, Now it's like your mama's so fat, you're going to jail.
God damn, you're not allowed to say that about your own mother.
We have no time.
We're not allowed to do that. No.
No one has no time.
Canceled.
Canceled.
The days of light humor and self-reflection are gone. Mm-hmm. You're seeing the whole world is being taken over by people that they're singularly focused on doing whatever it is that they're doing. I leave that open-ended because it's like we were talking about last week. Many people are doing many different things, thinking that their action is the most important. But for the lot of them, they don't even realize what it is that they're fighting for or what the outcome will be. So, be that the people that are pulling down statues in the United States right now, thinking that racism is going to be erased after the last statue is gone, or
Not the way they're doing it.
Well, they don't realize.
I think it's exacerbating the problem, actually.
Yeah,
because it's going to leave a lot of like legitimately racist people doubling down on that.
Yeah. Also, these people, they're looking for resolution. They're looking for an end game. They're looking for an end game where an end game doesn't exist. So when they get to the end of this crusade that they're on right now of dismantling every statue, burning every history book, what they're going to realize is it's not enough.
No, this is only the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're seeing that in the well, not even in the news, like just internet journalism, which take it for a grain of salt. But it's it's a shame that like big publications are now getting dragged into this. Vice used to be an actual thing, but now they're talking about like how fucking fudgesicles are racist because they're brown. It's like, is that a concern anybody needs to have?
Well,
it's like, what?
When you're
like, this is insane.
When you're hyper,
that's an actual thing too. Like, I'm not making this up.
No, I can't even make my pancakes without looking at my Mrs. Butterworth bottle. Mm.
Aunt Jemima,
instant rice.
Aunt Jemima, they're taking her off.
Uncle Ben,
he's gone.
Yeah.
The actual family.
Yeah.
Like he was a real person.
No, there was a legitimate reason why Uncle
family.
Ben was on the front of Uncle Ben's rice.
The family's pissed off.
But yeah, they don't
that they got rid of him because it was a good representation of like a black farmer that actually fucking made it.
Cancel culture doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
They don't care. This is what I'm trying to tell you. It's an unquestioned move right towards one direction without looking any other way or considering the alternatives. And this is why I'm telling you. These guys are going to bring down every statue. They're going to burn every history book. They're going to rebel in the streets until every police force in the United States in particular is disbanded. And then they're going to get to the end of it and they're going to realize there is no end. There's no end. They have to keep cannibalizing themselves. They have to keep cannibalizing the system. in order to keep fulfilling this void. Otherwise, how can you question the irrationality of taking a fucking black farmer off the box of rice? Because nobody cares.
It used to be a good thing.
Nobody cares about the story. It's what it represents.
Yeah.
We don't want to hear it. It's not important to us, and that's why I'm telling you, these people, they're
You know, the funniest thing about that is like they're getting rid of black people in all of these consumer goods.
Yeah.
No one has said anything about Mr. Clean. This guy that's wearing all white,
Yeah.
has a shaved head, and wants to cleanse things.
Might as well have a square mustache.
Oh, yeah. It's so weird. No one's like, no, he's fine. He's fine. Let's get rid of the black people, though.
They could simply just rename him to Mr. Queen, and all the political correctness would come back immediately.
Maybe.
Come on, you know it.
It's still fucked up, though.
Mr. Queen.
Mr. Queen. It's like wearing a dress.
Hey.
Hey.
I'm going to clean for you. Yeah.
Make a lot of dudes uncomfortable. It's like,
I don't care if we have 0 fucking listeners at this point. There's going to be 2 listeners, and they're both going to be gay. And that's going to become a major bone of contention right there.
Yeah. Well, that'll just boost the ratings.
I can see one guy, he was shaking his head for the entire, 50 minutes that we were talking, and then all of a sudden I dropped that, and they're like, you fucking asshole.
The crazy thing is like if you piss off these people, it actually gives you more publicity.
Sure.
It's great.
Yeah, of course.
It's great for business.
Well, do you want to know why? Because there's still a certain element of it that is interpreted as honesty. Mm-hmm. Even though honesty is outrageous, it's still not accepted as something that shouldn't be said, even though for whatever reason it produces such a level of shock value to tell the truth and state facts now. We live in an upside-down world where, half facts and non-truths are the ones that people want to hear. They're mutually reinforcing. People don't want to hear truths and facts about anything. The entire, glass house of everything that we've created since the global financial crisis with all this fucking social reordering, it's all nonsense. They don't want to hear that shit. Everybody wants the validation. They don't want the criticism. Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know what?
Well, they want to come out on top and feel good about themselves,
Yeah. But also, we talked about YouTube being guilty of shepherding people into silos. It's also a vehicle for people who willingly shepherd themselves into their own silos. Right? There's for as many people will right click on the videos that are being prescribed to them by Google, YouTube. Mm-hmm. There's a number of people who are going to type in the bar for mutually reinforcing terms, and and they're going to live in an echo chamber of their own ideas. And it's like you said, eventually what's going to happen is they're going to come to think that the way they think is the way everybody thinks, which is crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, I go through the exact same thing. I mean, I have the same problem. I subscribe to the same kind of ideology that I fit into.
Yeah,
and it is hard to see other things, other ways of thinking or anything like that, because every time I go on the internet, I'm just kind of looking for the things that I want to look for, and in a way, it's comforting. Yeah. And I understand why people alt-right people would want to only be doing whatever they're doing, and alt-left would also be doing the exact same thing. I mean, I lean very, very centrist, very moderate, but then I'm kind of stuck in my moderate way of thinking because everything I'm looking at is moderate.
Yep.
Because it works for me.
Mm-hmm. It's understandable.
Yeah.
It's understandable. Mm-hmm. As long as you're willing to acknowledge that while you're doing it that there are other ways of viewing things. And one of the hardest things for a human being to do is have a very strong opinion on something, but to know that there are many different opinions on the same subject and that all of those opinions may carry merit in their own ways. Right? It's not easy for human beings to come to terms with the fact that, sometimes we've created these partitions and we've created this red and blue and left and right and these very concrete terms on how to deal with things, but often we're applying those concrete terms to things that should not necessarily have those type of walls put up. Politics is one of them. I don't believe anybody should ever subscribe to the idea that we have a left, a right, and a center. This is fucking nonsense, especially in the United States, because it's the second religion in the United States is politics, and people identify themselves with their politics. They gear their entire lives, who they talk to, who they don't, where they eat, how they shop, to their party's interest in, and it's insane to think that any person that has like a reasonable expectation of trying to understand the truth about anything should know that most of what happens in the world, including specific issues that happen on a day-to-day basis, don't fit neatly into a left, right, or center narrative about anything. Right? And furthermore, if you're stuck in one very specific way of thinking about something, you're going to end up coming off awfully ignorant, because you're going to have to justify your moderate position by re-engineering the facts that you're seeing to retrofit into that ideology. And that's not what intelligent people do. That's not what intelligent people do. Like, just thinking about that, like just the sheer idea of that, I actually have to retro-engineer facts. I'm a moderate, so I have to retro-engineer the facts of something that happened so that they fit into my lens of thinking. Yeah. And this happens way too much now. Yeah. With everything in life, and it's nonsense. With
any position.
It's nonsense.
It's,
Yes. Yeah, it's an artificial partition, and it should have.
That over there doesn't fit into what I think of is reality or society, so I'm going to have to fix it so that it works for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's comfortable for me.
You can imagine,
and maybe that's a little bit, maybe that's beneficial for you personally if you're not preaching it. If you want to live like that, take it as it is. Fine. But if you want to regurgitate that and have protest and scream at people about this new narrative that you have constructed in your basement, over the weekend, it's like, okay, that's not helping anybody.
No. You're creating teams.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to fit into a team now. Like, every single time a Hollywood star speaks out, based on what they say, right down to the word, right down to the intent of how it was said, you're instantly going to be grouped and categorized into one of the groups. You're going to be shuffled to the side, and the opposite media spectrum is going to be barking at you for your lack of candor, your inability to see their side of things. But that's not. People don't understand. Like, that's not the way politics is supposed to work. It was never designed to be a system like this where you were literally partitioned based on your political beliefs. That's crazy to think that.
Well, it's like it's almost like the new religion.
Yeah.
Like, definitely with politics, like when it comes to religion, it really doesn't matter what you believe in or what you're doing. That's up to you. You're living your life the way that religion is dictating, and that's how you feel like it's the best for you.
Yep.
But there's never like a Jew goes to a Christian and says, "You're fundamentally wrong. You're fucked up. Everything about you is wrong." But we have that with politics for some reason.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
But it's only because religion is a little bit more irrelevant now.
Yeah, to a degree.
So a lot of people are now adopting the new religion of politics.
Well, and then
because
you'd have to.
Religion is starting to like decrease over time.
Okay, so in order to qualify that with a caveat, I would say that in North American and Western European societies, religion is becoming less of a thing. I don't necessarily agree that that's the way that the rest of the world is interpreting their relationship to religion. I do believe that, in the West,
maybe not
in the West, yeah.
I think there's a lot of atheism.
Oh yeah.
And the only thing that they can back is their political side.
Yeah.
Because when you really look at it, like when it comes to politics, when it comes to government, like the government is telling you what to do and how to live your life.
For the most part.
Historically, your religion would give you those life lessons. What to do, what not to do. What's the proper way of carrying yourself.
Yeah.
Through the world. But now it's if you're an atheist, if you're a staunch atheist, you don't believe in any of that stuff, you might look to Trump and be like, he's got the rules. I'm gonna look at those rules. That's how I'm gonna live my life now.
I'm gonna look at those rules.
That's it. Whatever.
How about those rules?
Oh, rules.
Give me some rules.
I don't know. People like being governed.
They do.
They really do.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of legitimate individualists.
No.
There's anarchists, but I think they're a little bit fucked up.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd.
There's a reason why it's called anarchy.
I don't know. I don't know if I would sweepingly generalize. I think there's a good number of atheists who probably look at their I don't believe in God sort of thing, and then probably use it to justify committing tyrannous actions against other people. Okay, yeah, I could.
Well,
buy that.
No, I don't know. I wouldn't say that, but I mean, it's pretty clear what's happening here. When Nietzsche said God is dead.
Yeah,
and it's
literally and metaphorically.
Yeah, it's pretty clear now.
Yeah,
no one really cares about what God or what your idea of God is. That's not important when it comes to governing structures in the world.
Yeah, okay.
They're telling you what to do with your life.
So
that's the American government is above God.
Yeah, no, you're right. Okay, so I mean, America was founded on the principle, Enlightenment principles. Okay, it was the very first country that organically grew up around the principles of Enlightenment. One of the principles of Enlightenment is a distinct separation of church and state. Right, so by all accounts, the United States was the very first country in the history of mankind to have a political system that was divorced from religion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's part of one of the principles of the founding of the republic, right? So if you want to argue, if you want to take it to its maximum extent, as to why people have taken to politics as a means to supplant the othering of each other via religion, maybe America presents itself as the perfect hotbed for such tensions to occur. But I would say that there's many reasons, why there's problems in the United States right now. I mean, we've just to kind of beat a dead horse on this. Probably going back to the show that we had last week too. It's this type of infighting. It benefits the powers that be. It benefits the status quo. It might seem on the surface like a ludicrous statement of me to say that social turmoil and turbulence and protests in every country somehow benefit the ruling powers. They absolutely do, and the reason for that is because they were the ones who actually created the partitions within our society. They've gone about systematically in the last 30 or 40 years doing nothing but creating social partitions amongst people in their own countries. And the sheer reason why they've done that is to make sure that the majority of the people will never get together for a common cause to challenge the real issue. The real issue is the fact that the societies in the West, in Western Europe, in North America, are being controlled by a very small group of people who benefit very handsomely in, say, for example, times of crisis like COVID. You know, that's the goal. The goal is to create enough apartheid between people in a given society that they basically devolve into infighting. And they can never see the value of getting together with each other for the purpose of taking down the real perpetrators, the people who are creating the social discord. So they have decided, and this was an interesting distinction, because I think you brought up the question to me. It's like, how do they benefit from that? Well, it's a complex, multifactorial system. They like to have a certain level of discontent in their society, but they don't like that discontent to be targeted. As long as they can keep creating imagery and false reasons for apartheid amongst us, they're still succeeding. They don't care if there's instability within an economy or in a society, as long as that instability isn't focused on them. Right? So that's kind of the really interesting caveat of that. You would think that those people, they would want stability. They're actually not. They're not in the game of stability. They are very much in the game of creating social apartheid. The social experiments that have been going on in the West since the early 1990s. This is all a very, very, very calculated strategy to sow discord and apartheid amongst different groups within each country. And for their part,
is it because they know they're always going to be on top?
No, it's because they're in fear that they're in fear of being discovered. I think, going back to the internet thing, I think there's never been a time in history where they've started to fear for their own well-being and the continuance of their particular controls over their aspects of the society. There's never been a time where the access to information was such that somebody could literally just simply type something in 1 second and have the answer to everything that they wanted to know. So it's kind of a dual thing. Like, they're actually engaged in an effort to divert you from caring about those things, so that you're not interested in your own time in researching them. Yeah, no way. So we talked about why, like, the internet, it's not being used for the same things as it used to. Well, there's probably reasons for that too. Right? The way that we've used the internet has changed. Look at all these massive corporations that are part of this blanket that are creating diversionary tactics like YouTube. If you took all the time that you spent on YouTube and diverted it into meaningful, useful time of your internet usage, you'd probably still be smarter. You'd be smarter still than you are. But YouTube is a vehicle to distract you from the other thing. Like, I used to try to write papers at 3 o'clock in the morning, essays, and I get on YouTube, and then all of a sudden it would be like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I just went down a show hole. Well, I'm supposed I'm supposed to be focusing on writing an essay. That's just an essay. Now think about how this prevents you from getting to the bottom of any legitimate question you might have about the way your society operates.
Depends on how you use it, though.
To each their own, but for more.
If you're using it as purely entertainment, then yeah, of course, like, you're gonna go down a rabbit hole and you're just gonna have fun with it. But you could use it constructively.
Yeah, but what do most people use it for?
Distraction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I'm not I'm not trying to disagree with you. The truth is, you're absolutely right.
I'm saying the same thing. I've definitely, like, I've gotten to that point on YouTube where I'm just watching, like, complete bullshit until 5 in the morning. Like, but because it's fun, you know.
Yeah.
All kinds of crazy shit just for fun. But it's still the internet. And by the laws of the internet, that means there's a lot of information out there.
Yeah, lots and lots.
Yeah. It's funny how, like, people can be so disillusioned and stuff now.
Yeah.
In a time where, like, the internet exists, and it's like you can just Google these things.
Well, you just kind of walked right into the problem, though. Like, why? See, this is the ultimate expression of laziness. Google has been presented to you as a legitimate way of finding fact.
If you want to know, like, a definition of something,
Nobody's looking up fucking definitions.
Yeah, me.
Of what?
Yeah, anything.
Then you're getting
You hear a word you've never heard before, and you're like, what the fuck is that?
Don't be afraid to type in wikipedia.com at the top so that you can forego the Google browser. Fuck that.
You could, but if you
No.
if you want the dictionary definition,
can I
Google
make a point
will give
about
it to you.
This is a very, very valid point because you started off this whole segment by saying the internet isn't being used right. But then you finished off by saying you could just easily Google something. Well, you actually walked into your point, contra to your point that you were trying to make. You actually started to say that you can use the internet for a very useful purpose, but then you finished by saying just be lazy and use Google. Don't worry. That's not
for everything.
That's not,
I'm saying for a lot of things, like a lot of questions can be easily figured out if you just Google it.
Yeah. Or
you could go on Wikipedia, like you said, but how accurate is that?
Here, let me present something to you.
How accurate is Wikipedia?
Let's type in.
It's open source.
It's only as accurate as the people who are writing the entries.
Exactly.
But let's take another example of this, okay? Go on Google and type in Russian collusion in the 2016 presidential election. It's already a fact that Russia did not do anything that would have been considered nefarious in the 2016 election. If you type that in on Google right now, what you're going to find, the first 5 or 10 searches, are not going to tell you what I just said. It's literally going to tell you about the Russian collusion that happened in 2016. So if you choose to be lazy and accept what is being told to you as fact, you're going to run into this problem over and over again. Now...
But what I was saying was actual textbook definitions.
No. You and I, we know things about the way things work. The majority of the people that are on the internet right now, because you said it can be used for purposeful things. It can be a tool, but it requires a reorientation of the average consumer's usage of the internet to understand how everything that they do on the internet impacts them. Most people don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Most people don't fucking care. They're going to take the lazy route. They're going to type everything in on Google. They're going to get all their information for the 2020 election cycle on Google. And guess what? If you think Google's a fucking value neutral media company who's spitting out both sides of an opinion, that's horseshit. It's not. They're part of the extreme left liberal media that's no different than CNN, MSNBC, Facebook. They're all the fucking same.
Yeah, and that's definitely a problem. The issue with navigating the internet now is that you can't be lazy at all. The entire purpose of the internet is that you have to get to the bottom of things.
Yeah.
It's not for lazy people. It's for people who are engaged.
Yeah, but
a lot of people, like what I said earlier, like everyone and their mom is on the internet now because it's so easy.
Yeah.
And they're treating it like it's NBC, where they can just flip it on and there's the news. That's the right thing.
Yep.
I'm going to go to bed now.
Yep.
And that's it. So like what you brought up, Google's going to give you a bunch of shit that's pandering to whatever the narrative is. But like that's not the full story.
No.
The thing is that if you actually want the true answers, you have to dive a little bit deeper into it and you have to use, your brain to actually dive deep into it. And most people aren't going to do that. But historically, most people don't do that ever. And I don't know if they're ever going to go to the distance.
Wasn't ignorance something that was a lot more acceptable when access to educational materials was something that was, showed a very distinct hue towards rich people who could afford to pay for the knowledge? Those times are gone. I mean, in the sense of excusing people's ignorance, we're at a time now where we can't do that anymore. We're at a time now because of the information we have on our hands. Look, you have been feeding, not you, but anybody who's listening to this certainly has been feeding into a Google algorithm that knows full well that 95% of its fucking users don't go past the first page when it hits search results. What impetus do they have to put any truthful or fact based information on that first page, knowing that you're not going to go to the second page to look for like an alternative news source.
It's based on clicks too.
Sure.
So whatever is the most popular gets onto the first page.
Yeah, but
And
no,
what's-
it's also
what's-
like there's three different things. Okay, there's political motivation, there's popularity based
That
on
too,
clicks,
yeah.
and there's monetary based incentive.
Yeah.
There's three things which
yeah.
drive the search results that are on your first page.
Yeah, well, you see, you search anything into Google now, you'll see that the first 5 things are ads.
Yes.
They say ad under it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
And then you get some actually real things. Yeah, but it's fascinating because, like,
I didn't say it wasn't.
because no, like nobody ever clicks on page 2,
No.
and yet it runs the search results and it shows you the amount of search results.
Yep.
When you search for shit,
Yeah.
it's like a million things.
Million. Yeah.
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 No one's ever going to take the time to go through all that stuff.
No.
No,
But
it's exhausting.
You know, the truth is, though, you would think if there were 20 search results on the first page, 19 of those stories were telling the exact same fucking story, that there would at least be one contra article, contra opinion.
Sometimes there is.
Not very often.
But not often. Yeah.
If it's of a very, very important political nature, you can almost certainly believe it won't. Yeah, no way. No way. If you
Yeah,
type,
well,
if you type in
that in-
why did Hillary Clinton lose the 2016 presidential election, I guarantee you're getting self-reinforcing liberal bubble bullshit on the first page. Guaranteed. Russian collusion.
Sure, yeah.
Blame everybody except Hillary Clinton for how bad she did.
Yeah.
Even though she's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Not that she was like the most hated politician.
She lives in
American
such a
history.
bubble. She lives in the same bubble that's being created for all of us. She doesn't even realize how much she's disdained on an average level. She doesn't get it.
It's a mystery. Mystery to her.
Why did I lose? It had to be Russian collusion. Google
Clearly.
Google and Facebook keep telling me that. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know why I should even trust Google and Facebook to tell me what the fuck happened.
Even though she was doing speeches at like a Starbucks and Bernie Sanders was selling out the Seattle Dome.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean,
It's like, what the fuck is going on here?
The outcome should have been obvious in the representation that was on every political stop on that election cycle. It should have been very, very obvious, even to the casual observer, that something wasn't right. And you know what? I mean, for proponents like me who have said for a long time that democracy is a scam, it is a scam. It's an absolute scam. It's an illusion. It's an authoritarian illusion. Right? The only difference between us and China is China's direct with their citizens about what kind of system they live in. Our politicians, our aristocrats like to lie to us. That's really the only thing that separates us from a different political institution. Now, if you're the type of person who likes to have your face lied to so you can put a smile on your face and tell everybody how great the place you come from is vis-a-vis where they live, that's your choice. But if you're the type of person who likes the no bullshit approach like me, I don't necessarily like being told that I live in a democracy while I'm seeing the signs that that's not the case everywhere I look. That's insane. No way. No way do I believe that. Like I believe that my vote affects the outcome of our elections. Do I really believe that? No. 95% of policy implementation comes from special interest groups, whether they be lobbyist organizations or conglomerations of large industries which all get together to try to fashion policy for, their respective governments. A full 5% essentially of the policy that gets implemented in our capitals, be it Ottawa or Washington, comes from the people. Right? And we've already talked about how that meager 5% really just represents social changes, not really political or economic changes, because governments like Canada don't have the authority to make political and economic changes. Only social ones.
Yeah, I recently found out that the Canadian Constitution is so long that nobody knows exactly how long it is.
Yeah. Nobody wanted to read it. Fuck it.
That's fucking crazy.
That's a classic. That's politics 101. If you want to bury the darkness in a cloud of light, you bury it in a 1,200 page document. There's
hundreds of just random British laws that they kept.
Yeah.
In there that nobody knows.
No. Why would they?
It's fucking crazy.
It wouldn't make any sense to for a new country that was starting out to go back and do the history on a country that they're supposed to be separating from. What's the point of symbolically separating from a country when you're simply just adopting their fucking constitution? Oh, no. Their constitution is laid on top of yours. But then you're being told that you're an independent country now.
On paper.
Yeah, Canada was never an independent country. Not at a single point in time in our entire history were we ever and continue to ever be a free country. In terms of not having certain political and economic functions being filled by third parties that really have nothing to do with our quote-unquote elected officials. Right? It's
not to talk shit about Canada either.
No.
Very livable country.
Yeah, for the most part, it's great.
It's very shady, very weird.
Oh,
it's very much just like a puppet organization.
Yep.
We're all just agreeing. We're all just pretending.
Yes.
Like this is working out.
And
hoping for the best, but Trudeau has no real power.
Oh, he's under legal scrutiny now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you heard the latest on that. There was a we charity.
Did he do blackface again?
No. It's this we charity thing. One of his corporate shill pals, his donor, somebody from his donor class. He was caught running cash and carry operations essentially from the government coffers directly to one of these charities, and now the Conservative Party is trying to ask the RCMP to start a formal investigation. Ooh. You know what? One thing after another with Trudeau. Why should anybody be surprised?
A shifty dude.
He comes from a line. His old man he was one of the. To be honest with you, I would like to say that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, but I think that Justin and Pierre are actually two different politicians altogether. Like when I talk about people that were alive when Pierre Trudeau was alive and he was the prime minister, they said he had a certain level of je ne sais quoi. Like you couldn't put your finger on it. He had charisma. He had the guts to challenge the establishment in some ways. And Justin represents nothing of that at all.
Yeah, he represents woke.
Yeah,
woke dude.
Like I said, when you're
he's definitely a different guy. But it seems like he's definitely he's taken a note out of his dad's textbook.
Yeah,
he's kind of doing the same thing.
In a way. See. Pierre,
he doesn't have original thought.
No.
I mean, it's great that he got weed legalized. Honestly, that it's a funny topic to bring up, but it's a legitimate issue.
The truth of the matter is,
it was such a ridiculous thing, and I'm glad somebody finally did something about it because it's kind of fucking ridiculous.
I tend to be of the opposite spectrum. I personally believe that they should have just left it the way it was.
Really?
Yeah, I believe they should have just left it the way it was and decriminalized it. I really do. I don't see the net benefit other than the net benefit to the coffers of the federal government. I don't see it being a better system for the producer and the consumer. I don't see that. As a matter of fact, the quality of the product has gone down, and because they've weeded out all the independent suppliers, the cost of the product has gone up.
But then you could say the same thing about alcohol.
What? That the cost has gone up and the quality's gone down?
Yeah.
Really? I guess.
Clearly, moonshine is stronger than what we're drinking.
Fuck? Where does that come? Like, what are we talking about? Wait, where do we get on moonshine? We're drinking beer here,
Well, think about weed before legalization. You didn't know how strong it was. You didn't know anything. There was no stats on it. But now you actually know the specifics about it. You can get just CBD shit. That's CBD capsules, whatever. It's all legal. It's all above board. But what you're talking about is the government taking tax dollars from the sales of weed. Well, they take tax dollars from the sales of alcohol too, and cigarettes.
Yeah.
Which they increase the taxes on every year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how is it any different?
I don't think it is. I just think that
how is it bad that it's legal now?
The two former items that you're speaking of have always been considered legal and to some extent vital to the continuing of society. Like, maybe cigarettes not so much now, but alcohol certainly.
But the thing is, people can't go to jail for weed now.
No,
that was the big issue.
They weren't going to jail for anything under an ounce anyway. An ounce or under anyway.
But they still were for no fucking reason.
Community service.
Like,
if you were a drug dealer, you'd end up getting community service. It really wasn't that bad.
Yeah, but why have that for something that hasn't killed anybody ever?
Well, no. See, this is what I'm.
That's the thing.
This is what I'm talking about. Like, they should have left it decriminalized. They shouldn't have legalized it. I don't think that's a good idea, because there's still as many people going to jail right now. They're just producers without a government license to grow. They're shops without government licenses to operate. There's still people going to jail. It's just a different clientele of people going to jail now, and a different group of people who are now being alienated by the state because they've changed the rule. It's no longer the people that smoke.
Are they actually going to jail, or are they just getting fined?
Oh, there's pretty strict penalties for people who went against the certification system in the beginning. Yeah, for sure.
I won't say that it's perfect. It clearly isn't. But it seemed completely ridiculous to keep it illegal.
It
should just be.
No, it should never be
out there.
It should never be illegal. Like, being illegal is different.
And it doesn't mean that you can't buy off of, like, your buddy. Everyone's allowed to grow. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of plants in my backyard right now.
There you go.
It's like, you can do that, and then you can just give it to your friends and shit. If there happens to be a money transfer during that, no one has to know.
Oh, okay. So so there's rules there, but as long as nobody's paying attention, it's okay. Mm-hmm. So those rules, if they were being enforced to the full extent of the law's ability to do so, would actually be hindering you quite a bit from that transaction. It just so happens that there's not a cop around watching you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, no, there's lots of, like, drug dealers would operate under the same premise when weed was illegal. If I'm not caught, then I'm still doing it.
But even if you're caught now, think about all the great lies you could tell the cops and still get away with it. Being like, "Oh, I'm paying I'm giving this guy the $100 that I owed him from last month at the poker game,
and he's giving me some things in exchange."
And we just happen to be holding weed because weed's legal, so you can't talk shit. So go home, Terry.
Terry. Oh, Jesus. That guy's got a power trip complex.
Terry's just got that one vein in his forehead.
Dude, no cop that I've ever met named Terry didn't have anything but a mean streak in him. That son of a bitch.
Yeah, he kneels on people's necks
He was busy trying to get back at his parents for naming him Terry.
He's a very angry person.
No thanks.
He just goes home and sharpens blades all night.
Cursing his parents. It's an interesting conversation to have. This is a personal opinion of mine.
Yeah, I know. It was definitely a lot easier for you in the olden times.
Hey, what are we speaking? What are we speaking about me and personal experiences for? We're not supposed to be talking in first person.
No, but
give me a break.
We only speak in third person.
I never smoked weed once in my life. Okay, I'm totally kidding. I'm getting high right now. I don't give a fuck.
There was easy things about doing it back in the day, and there was not so great.
Yeah,
aspects of it back in the day. I just I was jamming the other night with my buddies, and we were talking about weed legalization, and we were just joking about like how in high school you'd have to go to some guy's house that you kind of knew. It was like your friend's friend. You'd go to his house. His parents were never around. He had like a dog. A couple of his buddies were strung out on the couch. You'd go. He would have 2 bags, and you'd say, "What do you want, indoor or outdoor?" It's like that's your only option. Like what the they're not even names.
Barely looking up from World of Warcraft or Diablo or Final Fantasy or some shit. He's
shredded because like he's on all kinds of drugs because he got all of them.
Actually,
if you want coke, yeah. If you want mushrooms, sure.
They just weren't eating. That's why they were cut.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just never took the time to. I mean, the guy that I'm referring to, fuck me if he ever even showered. I don't fucking know. He was
Probably
just
not.
the quintessential. Yeah. Those wool pullover hoodies.
Yep.
Yeah, those ones, right? Oh yeah, the hippie special.
Yeah, I got one.
Every single day of his life, he would wear that shit.
Yeah.
But
it's funny. It's funny, like buying drugs back in the day because like. Well, and weed's not even really a drug, but buying weed back in the day was just funny because you'd have to go to like some guy's house and just hope for the fucking best and hope it was good. You didn't know. But now you can go to the weed store and just like have the stats of everything, and it's all like grown in some laboratory in BC. Well, it's specifically designed to like fuck you up the way you want it to.
Back.
It's crazy, and now it's like. Alcohol. It's like you can have a beer or you can have a shot of vodka. It's like, what do you want?
Yeah, and here, like my personal experience is that. In a way, you're right. Okay, in a way, you're right. There's less uncertainty about, especially just knowing where you're going to grab your weed. Obviously, right? That's clearly an advantage to the whole situation.
Yeah,
but I mean, you're talking back in the day. If this hippie dude, he had. Weed that wasn't considered up to standard, he'd be reducing the price, and I'd be getting like my ounces for $160.
Sure, yeah.
So I walk into a bodega today.
I used to get grams for $5 off this guy.
Yeah. So I walk into a weed store today, and I've done this a number of times in the last 2 years, and the prices start at $220, $230 an ounce. And every single time you ask somebody behind the counter to tell you about this weed, they give you it's slightly different words, but exactly the same description. So you're like, okay, that's fine. So, I mean, the first time...
It'll fuck you up, man.
Yeah.
You'll be dead.
It's got a really strong indica high, so, you can expect yourself to be couch locked, man. It's like, yeah, okay, fine. I'm grabbing Pink Kush. I expect myself to be fucking couch locked, right? And you get home, and you smoke it, and you realize, actually, this is not very high-quality weed at all. This is government-regulated, legalized, stipulated weed from a legitimate vendor that they're charging full price for quadruple A quality weed, and they're giving you single A quality weed for that price. It's driven the price of every... By the way, and this is still for the street-level dealers, the price went up overnight. Those people who used to be like, yeah,
they gotta compete.
Well, I've got this stuff. It's not the greatest, but it'll definitely get you high. How much, man? Well, like if this was normal quality, I would do it for like $210, but I'm probably I'll let you have it for like $160. Gone. Those days are gone. The days of individual price discovery and stuff like that. Everybody's just keeping up with the market. Mm-hmm. The problem is, the quality of the street level shit is still better than what the government is giving you. They're charging you full price.
Even that stuff you get from BC?
That's not government. They don't supply the government. They don't have a contract to supply the government with weed. They have a contract to exist, but not to supply the government. They're an independent marijuana company.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So that's
there's still a lot of laws about it that I don't know.
I know.
I've been to a couple weed stores, but I don't know if is all of that grown by the government or something like that. I don't know.
Okay, so the difference between where I would grab my weed and whatever, the place where I grab my weed. So way back in the day when these strains were being created, they were being created by individual marijuana companies. Like, for example, Sensei Seeds produces a seed called Big Bud. The company that I deals with Sensei Seeds to import their product, right? Sensei Seeds is in the United States. So they're pulling that shit from Northern California to bring it into their business, which is a private business, to sell it to Canadian consumers. They're not they don't have a government sanctioned grow op in Canada where they're legally allowed through the government to produce and distribute for themselves. So yeah, there's a big difference there. I don't necessarily understand the legality of the site that I order through. I just know that if I'm going to be paying $2.30 an ounce for, an ounce of marijuana, that I want it to be $230 worth of quality. That's not a lot. Right. That's a lot of money. That's not chump change. A lot of people could not afford to do that. Right, every 2 weeks or 2.5 or 3 weeks, they couldn't afford to do that. Right? So if you're going to be throwing down that much money, you better be goddamn good and certain that the quality is consistent and it's what you want.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So both Ryan and I have had, my friend Ryan and I have had very negative experiences with, stores. And the lack of consistency in terms of their quality. The prices are always high-end prices, but the quality varies outrageously. You do recall in the infancy of this how bad the weed was and how many complaints there were about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think those complaints have gone away.
And it's like $14 a gram. And
it's fucking absolute. And everybody who was talking about this before they did it knew where it was going. We all knew where it was going. Most people were cautious about the idea of legalization. Most people who were directly affected by it. It's easy to have an opinion about something if you're not actually directly affected by it. So, for example, you actually don't smoke.
Not often, but I've grabbed like CBD weed.
Well, that's
off of the government sanctioned.
But you're also doing it for a different intent. Like CBD is not to get you high; it's for pain killing. It's to help sleep. It's to promote appetite. Things like that. Things that you're supplanting it. My mother chews CBD gummies to go to sleep because her hips are horrible. She's a side sleeper and she's got.
And you can get the pills and everything. Yeah, like that too, like capsules.
She's got horrible hips, and she swears by these CBD gummies that she eats before she goes to bed. Swears by them. Yep. Can't get enough of that.
My buddy's the same way. He takes CBD capsules because he has psoriasis.
Yep. Well, psoriasis. Dry skin.
Which causes him to have arthritis because of it.
Really?
That's a side effect of psoriasis. Apparently.
He's
a little bit fucked up, but he says CBD just clears it right up.
I have to admit, 100%. I think I've learned something today. I did not know that. Consider my fucking mind blown. Wow.
Well, I didn't know that either. He was bringing it up the other day. I'm what the fuck is going on?
You gotta be fucking kidding. That's crazy.
And the problem is, it's like it's a random genetic disease. Like it's just he's got it.
Wow.
It can't be fixed, so he has to remedy it with CBD, which seems to be working out for him.
Good.
But that's another benefit to having weed legalized, because you can actually have that instead of taking like Oxycontin all fucking day.
So you don't think it was politically expedient to take advantage of CBD, which was a product that existed before legalization, and then to champion it as something that, because marijuana is being legalized, now all these people who are suffering from pain are going to get relief? Do you think that to be the case?
Well, his insurance is covering it.
Good.
Good. So that's one benefit of it.
Yeah.
Instead of having to go to like fucking Tim's house.
Okay.
Where people are strung out on the couch and trying to get CBD weed.
Neither of those things are happening when you're trying to get CBD weed. What are they strung out on? CBD weed?
No, CBD weed is just available there at the house.
And they're all strung out on it?
But they're strung out on other things.
Oh.
That's the thing.
So those people that are like...
Oh, you've never been to a drug house.
Those people that are doing meth are offsetting the effects with CBD. Yeah, that's what they're doing, yeah.
They're not doing CBD.
They're not doing meth and CBD.
Because they know they can't get comatose on the couch off of CBD.
That's right. That's why there's no comatose people in a CBD house.
But CBD is available.
God damn.
I never saw CBD when it was legal.
What do you mean?
It was never an option. Where are you going to find it?
Oh, I can get you some if you want.
Now,
Yeah. I could have always got you some.
5 years ago.
I wasn't looking for it back then, but I'm pretty sure it was on the website that I get off of, yeah.
Well, I don't know.
The only thing that they've really added,
I never saw it.
the only thing they've really added in the last 3 years is mushrooms, which clearly intrigues both of us on a certain level.
It's insane that they're selling mushrooms.
I fucking love it.
It's not even close to legal.
You want to talk about fantastic?
It's not even close to okay.
This is way.
How are they selling it?
You want to talk about a system that is way better than getting off the street? This is considered a preferable step.
Yeah.
Mushrooms are interesting, right? Mushrooms are very strong. They're psychedelics. Like, you can have bad trips. You can have these things. So you got to be careful about where you're sourcing them, where you're getting them from. It's actually a step up to have a company like this selling them.
Yeah, but with mushrooms, you can also just take one cap and you'll never have a bad trip.
You'll never have any fucking trip.
If you do a low enough dose, like you're not gonna
listen. It's one.
You're not gonna fuck it up.
It's one thing if you're like a professional creative and you're popping a microdose at 8 a.m. so that you can sit at your computer for fucking 6 hours. But people who
I like their microdosing, man.
People that are
it's been fun. I've done it a few times.
People that are using it to trip are not microdosing.
No. It's a different experience.
That's right.
But I see that there's benefits to both.
They're two different things. They're two different things, right?
Yeah.
You want to have the effect on the brain without having the psychedelic component of it, right?
Yeah. The thing is, like with the if you're gonna do a big dose, like 4 grams or something like that, 4 to 5. I think like 7 is probably where probably not gonna go past 7.
That's where horses draw the line.
That's when things get real.
No, they get real a long way before that if you're not tolerant.
Reality ends, actually, at that point. But that is a different experience that gives you a different insight on things. But microdosing is very interesting as well because it's like it just kind of it alleviates a lot of stress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But you do get like a bit of a buzz.
A little bit.
You know?
You get the dopamine.
Yeah.
Right? You get that rush. You get the sensation.
You're smiling. You're
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Right?
You know?
Yeah,
you're having a good time with it.
Your brain is literally opening up.
Yeah.
Like the neurons are firing at like, a million firings a second. Like your brain is overactive, but it's also producing a lot of chemicals that are making you happy at the same time.
Yeah.
So you get that without getting the psychedelic component of it, and people love that shit.
Oh, yeah.
They want that shit. Like there's a certain group of people out there that
it's good for your brain chemistry.
That's right.
Apparently, it's does a lasting change to your brain chemistry that's actually beneficial.
And that's why a lot of people would that choose to microdose would never choose to get fucked up on mushrooms. They're literally just there for the microdose aspect of it.
Yeah, there's two different camps here.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So,
And then there's people like me that kind of like both. But
circumstantial. Depends on what the circumstances
different times.
are. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Right?
It's never going to be like Monday morning, I'm about to go to work, I'm going to take 7
pop
grams
4
of
grams.
mushrooms.
Yeah, for sure. That would be a great experience.
If I wanted to die.
Luke, we're going to have to let you go. Why? You chopped up the chef.
It's like you clearly cut your hand off.
You chopped up the chef and put him in the soup.
A lot of things could go wrong. Very wrong. Once fucking spiders start crawling up on you and snail creatures start looking at you.
Oh Jesus! Come on.
The fucking the slurm snails from Futurama start talking to you.
Yeah, you see
that starts to become a problem.
Yeah, I've never I'm not. I'll admit that I'm not like a big doser when it comes to shrooms. So I think the most I've ever popped at one time is 2 or 2.5 grams, somewhere in between. Maybe one extra cap or one extra stem here or there. But I've never gotten myself to the point where snails were talking to me and shit. Like, I've been to the point where the walls were closing in. I've been to the point where certain things on the walls and people's faces or bodies were melting. But, like, never where
Things get blurry, for sure.
Yeah. Never to the point where my brain was inserting things that weren't physically there. It was erasing things that were there and making them all fucked up, but not adding things to the matrix, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know?
The most I've ever done is 4 grams, and that's when you start seeing the snail people.
No, that's fucked up.
Start crawling around.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Cool, though.
If you can handle it.
As long as you can accept that what you're...
I mean, like, it takes a certain type of person to see something like that and be like, yep.
Yeah.
It's almost like you got to treat it like a dream.
You do.
Or it's like, you never think the craziest bullshit that you dream about is terrifying. It's always like, oh, of course that person's on fire. It makes sense because it's a dream, right?
As long as you can somehow keep telling your brain that what you're seeing is not real and it's part of what you're experiencing, you have to continually remind yourself that, because if you let yourself go for too long and you start to see some shit and you snap back out of it after like 30 minutes, you're like, it becomes your reality. You forget that this is part of an experience that you're having and it feels too real, right?
Yeah, it's funny. Like I've had buddies who have had terrible trips on mushrooms, but I think they're just like trying to control it or something like that.
Yeah.
But I've never had a bad time on mushrooms because it always feels like kind of like a dream to me.
Yeah.
You know, it's
definitely
like there's things you can learn from it, but you can't really fight what's going on, like what you're seeing, because then it gets dark real quick.
Yeah.
But you know, I've had like really crazy dreams where it's like, why is that person doing that? Or like, why does my friend have a completely different face? But then you're like,
yeah,
it's like, oh, my friend looks like Terry Crews, but like you register it as like completely normal because it's like it's in a dream.
Yeah.
And that's how mushrooms feel like to me. It's like completely crazy shit could be in front of me, but it's like, oh, of course. Of course that tree has a face.
Yeah.
Of course it does.
I kind of see it as a 4-hour road trip to another world.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have to admit it, like I've been guilty of fighting it in the past. It's akin to hanging on to a car that's going 80 miles an hour by the back bumper. It's the high is taking you to where it's got to go, and you're just hanging on for dear life, man.
Yep.
You know, like,
you gotta take it for what it is, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, there's definitely a certain level of legitimacy to what you're saying about you just got to kind of let it ride.
Yeah.
You're never going to control this.
Yeah.
It's bigger than smoking a joint. Like, you can be on top of being high when you smoke weed. It's easy, right? People that are tolerant to marijuana, they're very much in control when they're high. That's something you
can counteract it. Like, I've definitely had like really bad experiences with pot.
Yep.
Where I've gotten like massive anxiety to the point where I'm like kind of like
we used to call
feel a little bit cold.
We used to call it wigging out.
Yeah, wigging out. Yeah, I remember you telling me that once.
Yeah,
I wigged out pretty hard.
I had a number of friends that quit because of these similar experiences too.
Back in the day, I don't know.
Yeah, you're not the only one.
I think it's been a long enough time where I feel like I would be comfortable trying to ease back into.
I think you'd be fine.
Into it.
I think you'd be fine.
But there was a time where it was like I would smoke. I would take a few hits off of a bowl or something, and I would just be like shaking.
Yeah.
Like cold. I would feel cold.
Fuck.
And I'm like, why the fuck do I feel cold? Why do I feel scared?
Well, you know,
that I'm feeling cold right now. Like it was that kind of feeling, and I don't know what that's about.
Even for me, like times have changed a lot. You know, I don't smoke out of a bong anymore. I don't smoke every 2 hours. As a matter of fact, there's most days I'll roll up a single joint, with the exception of maybe when I'm here or whatever, and I'll smoke half of it midday, 4 or 5 o'clock, and then I'll smoke the other half before I go to bed. So things have changed completely for me. Like I used to be an every 2 hour on the fucking clock, packing a bong load. The bong load would be like, a half gram, maybe even sometimes closer to a gram every shot. Mm-hmm. Right. And you get stupid high. Right.
Yeah.
But but what I noticed is that the high isn't something that it plays out over a long period of time. It's something that has a very sharp rise and a very distinct fall. And it happens very quickly. Like usually after about 1 hour or 1 hour and 20 minutes of ripping a bong load, you're starting to come down, but you're actually coming down. You are so high up that the difference between your coming down and that peak is so noticeable that you have no choice psychologically than to go and smoke another bowl immediately. Mm-hmm. Right?
You got to even yourself out.
Or you got to keep the high all day. It's like, and then, I mean, you can attest to this. It's like, if you're that type of smoker, you're going to become brain dead at a certain point in the day. Mm-hmm. If you're waking up at 9 o'clock and you're smoking a bowl every 2 hours, you're brain dead by like 6. Mm-hmm. Right? You're fucking shot.
You get that like numbing feeling.
Yeah. Exactly.
Of like, I've kind of overdone this to the point where I don't feel it anymore. Like, I think we've both had that experience in high school where it's like, there's literally nothing to do other than to smoke weed and get fucked up.
Oh, yeah.
So you would, especially during the summer, wake up, it's like, I don't know, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon when you wake up in high school, fucking right? You wake up, you smoke a fat bowl, you go to your buddy's house, you smoke many more fat bowls.
Yep.
And then you formulate some kind of plan to buy more weed so that you can smoke more bowls.
Yes.
Until you're so exhausted mentally and physically from smoking so much weed that you just pass out. And then you sleep for 14 hours straight and wake up and do it again.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure somewhere in the middle there's a trip to 7-Eleven for some hot dog with some fucking fake
or Taco Bell,
fake chili and fake cheese on that fucker,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For us, it was always Taco Bell.
Fuck that.
Because they had free refills.
Yeah, that's ugly.
Yeah.
Fuck, you got Burger King right there. Why the fuck would you go to Taco Bell?
It's not as gross.
Whoa. Actually, that Burger King is pretty lame. It's pretty gross.
It is pretty lame. I don't think they have free refills either.
That's
the problem.
That restaurant's been there since like 68.
Plus, people actually went to Burger King.
Yes.
People never went to Taco Bell, so it would be like me and my buddies were the only people in there for 3 hours, and we can be so high
and that hang out.
That we could talk about anything, interdimensional fucking creatures and shit for 3 hours. And just drink Pepsi all day.
Oh, man.
Because that's the only thing to do in Welland.
Well, and then back to the story.
Other than petty crime.
Petty crime, yeah. Finding harder drugs to supplant your current drug habits. That's always an adventure for a lot of people from that particular city.
I always say
the drugs never go away; they just get harder.
I always tell people, I always tell people when they, I tell them that I'm from Welland, and they always ask me like, "Why'd you leave?" And I was like, "Well, you either stay and you get into hard drugs, or you stick to the soft drugs and you leave."
Yeah, exactly. Welland turning.
There's only one. There's a particular type of person that stays in Welland.
Yeah, Welland. The new age Akron, Ohio.
Yeah,
with an out of control meth problem.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't know if it's necessarily that bad, but there's definitely some shit going down.
Yeah, some shit.
No different. No different than anywhere. It's just that.
It's the small town.
That particular city is not big enough to hide its problems where it has it, right? Mm-hmm. It's very visible. It's right out there in the open. But you're starting to notice this now with even the bigger cities. The bigger cities, it's becoming impossible to hide the realities that are out there, like the economic realities. Like there's never been, in my opinion, more visible homeless people in this city than there is right now. Like,
oh yeah,
yeah,
like the tent city.
It's incredible.
That's going on right now. They got patio furniture out. Like it's, man, they're hunkering down.
Full service bar.
People are just smoking crack in the middle of the day. It's
fucking incredible.
Paradise. For them.
To a certain demographic of people who know nothing else, I suppose that is true. But
They're living
definitely
it.
not a good, it's like I drove down Main Street to get here. And so in our city, there's a, urban renewal going on in the downtown core. And I drove by one of the streets where we like to go eat a lot. And they're building a building right on the corner there, which is great because it's going to be like a fucking, 12-story, 13-story, made for affluent people condo
It's going up pretty quick.
who get to stare out of their window at the fucking bums and crackheads across the street lining up at Dollarama.
It's good.
Oh, I'm not
Premium location.
I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work.
It's actually in a shit location.
The truth is, though, that part of the city, that's just the first iceberg to fall. There's going to be a lot more going down there. And again, those people who are there that are, they look like, downtrodden, down on their luck. Those people will be shuffled somewhere else. It's only the case, I think, during this pandemic that people are being tolerated. And I think after, when we're finally through with all this, I think there'll be action taken. I'm not entirely sure of that. That's my speculation, because prior to the COVID thing, it wasn't like what it is now.
No.
Yeah,
there's a clear difference.
Yeah.
There's really something going on right now.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are, it's because people are being pushed out of shelters.
Yeah, I do too.
Because of crowding.
Yep. Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
So It's
brutal.
It's definitely a lot worse.
It's brutal
than it needs to be.
It's unprecedented times in the sense of in the West we do such a good job of hiding our blight. Right? We spend considerable amount of time like removing graffiti from our buildings and repairing our broken windows and hiding our homeless and our indigent. And right now, all of that just seems to be gone. It feels like the Wild West a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, fuck. It's kind of a weird situation that we found ourselves in right now. And you know what? You add to that the fact that this whole defund the police movement that's going on consequent to the Black Lives Matter protests, and the police feel like even if there was a legitimate reason to step in for something, they're not going to do that because they risk being ostracized for whatever action they take. Right? Like they're under a magnifying glass in a way that I can't remember in my lifetime the law enforcement ever being. This is not defending law enforcement, by the way. We have a little bit of a problem in Hamilton with racist cops. Racism in the city generally isn't really that big of a deal, like person to person, but for whatever reason, it's endemic in our police force. And nobody can seem to understand why. And my postulation is because you've got these fucking farm boys coming in from London and the Niagara region and God knows where else. They're not city people. They're come from conservative families. They're giant farm-size people, 6'3", 6'4", 230-pound guys that come from the fucking farmlands that were raised by conservative parents and probably never saw too many minorities when they were growing up. They probably lived a pretty sheltered lifestyle. I know London already, if it were true that cops were coming from London to work in Hamilton, there would be a legitimate reason. Like London is, by all accounts, it's an intolerant city. Not just the police force, but the people who live there.
London's overtly racist.
Yeah, it's
like I lived there for a little bit, and it's fucking brutal.
It's a white bastion. Yeah. It's a white bastion, right?
There used to be this really popular club on Richmond Street. I can't remember the name of it, but they had a sign out front that had a map of North America, and it had a dot where London was and says "You are here," and then a dot where California is. Snoop Dogg lives here. Dress appropriately.
No.
I'm like, that is the most fucking racist thing I've ever seen.
Oh my god.
But they didn't care over there, Like,
oh my god.
I saw like one black person in the entire city the entire time I lived there.
Jesus.
It's a weird town, man.
That's
and it's all frat dudes too. So they're all just ready to party and like commit crimes.
Damn. And get away with it because they're white.
Yeah.
And they grew up in affluent families, so
yeah,
they'll be able to explain that away through social disposition.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mean it. Yeah. My family's rich. Oh, okay.
I didn't mean it. She was already dead when she was here.
I found her sexually assaulted. It wasn't me.
Yeah.
It's like,
what can you do? It's already happened.
Scary and disgusting at the same time, but probably pretty accurate.
Very accurate. 100% accurate.
More fucking young women go missing in London.
Well, it's all these dumb fucks from like Woodstock and shit that come down to go to Fanshawe.
And tobacco country.
Yeah.
Tobacco country.
Yeah.
You better believe that they're towing a different line than most of us are. But yeah, no, I mean, going back to the point, like, like it stands to reason because Hamilton is a very multicultural place. It's a very ethnically fabricked. It's well fabricked. It's got a very strong quilt of people from all over the world, right? And for the most part, people get along here quite well. You're from out of town. I mean, I would entertain your perspective on how you think people are generally, how they receive each other in the city. I think it's pretty good for the most part. It doesn't justify, like, our police force, there's no precedent for it. There's no real reason or precedent for it.
I think that's why there's no, it's kind of an odd town.
Yeah.
Like Hamilton is like the big little city in a way, It's like, I've noticed like people being kind of racist. Like one time I was like walking to Hess Village and a guy came up to me and he was like, "Hey, what are you up to?" It's like, I'm going to the Doors pub in Hess Village. He's like, "Oh, Hess, a lot of chocolate faces there." I'm like, "What the fuck?"
Chocolate faces.
You just like.
I'm sorry.
I don't even know you, man. Like, how are you gonna like just rip that one out of your pocket?
You know the most fucked up.
What the fuck are you talking about?
You know the most fucked up thing about that? He actually made racism there sound delicious.
I'm like, yeah, that's
yeah.
I haven't heard that slur before, but it's like, holy shit, man.
Chocolate faces.
Like, first of all, like, I don't even know you. You came up to me, and you're assuming, like, I'm down
with this lingo.
Your shtick here.
We're down with that lingo.
It's like, I'm down with your racism. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I guess it's the most random thing I've ever heard. And then, you definitely, you run into the odd, like, really haggard, like, Hamilton dude, the, like, person in their mid-40s who's... You drank all of the alcohol that's ever existed, and it's like clearly out of touch with reality. Who like has all the terrible views about like East Indian people.
Oh yeah,
stuff like that. Like that happens.
Yeah, it does.
I don't know if that's ever gonna go away or no. It's unavoidable. Like there's just straight up ignorant people that you're gonna run into.
The sad part is,
but as far as like a city as a whole, like I haven't seen anybody like overtly racist or any like structural racism
committing a hate crime.
Yeah, nothing like that. Especially nothing to the extent that I saw in London.
Yeah,
that was like overtly racist, and they were confident about their racism.
I think the most intense thing I've ever seen in this city was the reaction to September 11th. They like. There was this like immediate bout of like patriotism, and then that was followed by the burning of a couple mosques. And I don't remember the details around it. I just remember the reaction of the community just being like, no, you just can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you're right. Okay. We have a common enemy. It's not the enemy that you're being told to hate. And yet here you are lighting fires to mosques as if every Muslim in the world was responsible for 9/11.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, so Hamiltonians from time to time, they do rear their unintelligent, ignorant heads sometimes for the wrong reasons. But for the most part, yeah, no, I would agree that they're hate crime. Like, we're talking about something that happened 20 years ago here too, right? Not something that happened yesterday.
But I would say that's more of a product of Western culture than it is just like localized racism or prejudice. I mean, that's something that's like, as a Judeo-Christian nation founded on those ideals, like, clearly a lot of people don't like Muslims.
Yeah.
It's something that's kind of deeply rooted,
I guess so.
in the situation that we're in.
I feel like maybe in the United States it's a little bit more intense than it is in Canada, but you're right. It's there. It's there.
Yeah.
It's definitely there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You know, but most people, I mean, this is the worst part about it. It's like, you know, whether you're white or whether you are brown or whether you're yellow or black, it doesn't matter. Everybody in this country came from an immigrant background. Some of us got here a little earlier. Others of us are still arriving, but you know, it would be a good lesson in humility for most people to remember that none of us are, so to speak, native to this land, save for the actual Aboriginal people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's amazing to me that we can bypass our own history to pass judgment on other people when we've literally ruined other people's lives and their rights to be here in their own land. We had to do that first so that we could pass judgment on other future people coming here.
Yeah, it's such a weird...
There's a profound ignorance to the whole thing. There's a profound ignorance to it.
Yeah, and it's like, as long as you're here long enough, then it's okay. In a weird way.
That's right.
Like, you know, like when my grandparents got here from Italy, like, Italians
were
hated. Like, definitely stereotyped.
Oh yeah,
heavily.
Huge.
And now it's like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
Italians are just part of the culture.
They might as well have came in the first wave.
That's it. Yeah, no one really thinks about it. It's like, as long as you're here long enough, then it's okay.
No, it's true.
And I think it'll get to that point where, like, Indians and Muslims and...
Yeah, of course. But there's no reason in the interim why we should be so intolerant and not remember the lessons of history. Like, if we were educated properly, if we were educated better, then a lot of these things that we don't think about when we're belittling others would be very readily apparent to us. Right? We're you know, it's I mean, what are you really going to do? And you're right about, you know, every consequent wave of immigrants that have immigrated to this country have had to have their decade of hate, so to speak. Where from the time they got here to, like, you know, 10 years, 20 years or whatever, they were just hated, ridiculed, belittled, treated as second-class citizens, you know, spat on, shit on, whatever.
Anyone who wasn't British.
Which
is weird because most of the people that live in Canada are not British.
A good percentage of people now are...
And yet we're just sticking with the idea that anyone who isn't British is just fucking shit.
Yeah. Well, that could only come from one place, couldn't it? That was British exceptionalism before American exceptionalism. Right? The British, when they were gallivanting across the world, when they had the empire the sun never set on, do you think they did that by conquering lands and treating people as equals? No, of course not.
No. You can't do that.
No.
You can't fucking do that, man.
I mean, think of the ideas that were coming out of England during the time of colonial expansion, eugenics, and you know, this idea that you could scientifically justify the inadequacies of every other race of people. The British saw themselves as so superior to everybody else that they started to create scientific justifications for why there was such a difference in development patterns between themselves and the people they were conquering. That's fucking sickening. They did it. They did it down to the point where they were measuring different attributes of the skeleton to try to come up with these physiological differences of superiority and inferiority between people. It's crazy how far it went. It's crazy how far it went. That level of racism,
like eugenics and shit.
That level of racism was adopted into Canada by its proximity to England. Yeah. That's not something that's inherent to the Canadian experience. It's very
like the same as States as well.
Oh yeah, it's very inherent to those two experiences. It's almost
as much as they like to deny it, like they're British.
It's part of the culture and lore. It's part of who they are. It's part of the social fabric of the institutions of their countries, respective countries. There's no way. Every institution, everything that was built consequently was built on top of that foundation. So obviously it's going to have elements of that naturally built into it. Right? We have problems with that too. Like we have legacy race issues because of our constitution and legislation and the way it operated and how it doesn't seem to easily fit into the way things are nowadays. Like we have the same issues. We have the same frictions. I don't believe that, we're as bad as the English. I still believe that the English were responsible for wiping out the Aboriginal people I don't even actually blame the French. Believe it or not, I don't actually blame the French. I think the French experience in North America was considerably more tolerant to Aboriginal people than the English one. The English experience was, what do you want to, it was already informed by a couple hundred years of racism before they even got here. Right? So why would it be any different once they arrived, I suppose? So it's kind of where it's at. The British are British history, British exceptionalism. British exceptionalism is an amazing thing because for such a cuckold country for hundreds and hundreds of years to have emerged into an industrial power, to have had the ability to spread its tentacles throughout the entire world, and then to turn around after their subjugated experience and then rule their empire through subjugation is phenomenal. It's a really fascinating aspect of Britain, of English history, for sure. Me being Irish, the when you read history books about the Irish, actually, if you're reading an unfiltered view of history, you can see how the British refer to the Irish. They refer to us as the white black people. I'm saying black people, but they use different words.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All kinds of crazy shit.
Sure.
There was a paper that was published by a Harvard professor in the early 1900s that was trying to make the claim that the Irish people were the missing link.
Oh, yeah. The evolutionary missing link.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They were somewhere between, Neanderthals and fucking, modern...
Apparently.
Modern humans.
Irish immigrants just, dancing away.
Dancing to the beat.
Living in a ghetto.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they became cops.
Yeah, exactly right.
And they assimilated.
Then all of a sudden they made Boston.
Yeah.
And then everybody in fucking New England had an Irish accent for some particularly odd reason.
That accent, man. Yeah.
That's a fucking Irish accent. I don't give a shit what anybody says.
It's so close, man. It's so close. It's a little bit of an exaggerated
Yeah, it's an American Irish accent.
American Irish.
Yeah, it's an American Irish accent. Yeah, fucking ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Same with people in Newfoundland.
Oh god, yeah.
They got the accent.
They have an almost actual Irish accent though.
Yeah. Not very far removed.
Yeah, when you listen to a real Irish person talk, they talk fast. It sounds like they talk nonsense.
Yeah.
And their tones are all off. The funny thing about people with the Irish, it's their tones, the way that you structure a sentence. It starts very passive and then it crescendos to the top is how we kind of deliver our sentences in English. Yeah. Irish people, they're all over the gamut with their sentences.
Yeah,
it's up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. It's just, it's really hard to get like a tonal understanding of what you're experiencing until you have heard it enough times.
Yeah, I'm not sure where like the question mark is, and like
they don't have
what's
one.
going on?
They don't ask questions. They just give answers.
Yeah. Everything's just like, here it is.
They don't have questions. They just make statements.
Really? Yeah. It just feels like everything is a statement. Very matter of fact.
Yeah, well, you know. I mean, yeah, no. I don't know how we got onto the conversation about Irish people in North America or whatever. We got onto it by way of
well, I don't know.
Understanding
It's fun.
Understanding how different waves of immigrants have always been hated by the people that came before them. That the people that come before them have always looked at themselves as more native to that piece of land than the people that come after them. When really, I mean, what is it? What is nativity? How do you define it? How can you say that you own a territory or you belong to a territory any more than anybody else does?
Yeah.
Right? Like we're all citizens of the earth, yet we've created these artificial borders on our terra, on our surface, and now that gives us the right to tell people who can come and who can go. Yeah, I don't know about that.
It's like the never-ending dilemma.
Well, here we are today, and we're still dealing with it.
Still dealing with it.
Yeah. Not only are
Probably will for a long time.
Not only are we dealing with it in terms of waves of immigration, we're dealing with it with our own citizens. Like, so the Black Lives Matter thing right now. This is like 350 years of unresolved tension that's happening right now. And these people have always been citizens of this country, technically. And yet here we are. They're still being treated like first wave immigrants. You know? So yeah, you could understand, the hostility. It's one thing not to be acknowledged for your role in creating global capitalism in the first place. Like, the English needed slaves from West Africa to work in the Caribbean so that they could grow sugar, so they could send the sugar home to England to mix with the tea that they had bought or stolen from Asia, so that they could feed a sugared tea to their workers, which would keep them working for another 6 hours a day. That was the whole logic. That was the beginning of the global economy. Black slaves from West Africa were essentially integral to the British experience in global capitalism. Right? It's one thing not to acknowledge that. It's another thing 350 years removed from that to still be being treated like second-class citizens. Yeah. Yeah. It's phenomenal, but it's the contradictions that we have to deal with. Yeah, and it's coming full steam now. We're being forced to confront it now. So
yeah.
And
on that note,
yeah, definitely.
I'll end it.
Yeah, we should definitely give it a shot. Appreciate all y'all listening. Whoever's out there, definitely.
I said I'd try to keep it short.
And here we are, 3 hours in.
Try to keep it as short as I possibly could.
3 hours.
But
2 hours and 45 minutes.
We always go off.
Yeah, well,
really
so what?
hard.
That's what. Listen, that's what we're here.
It's good.
That's
it's
what
good.
we're here
it's
for.
Good.
We're here to go off. We're here to, maybe stimulate some emotions in you. Maybe you're listening in bed. Maybe you're listening while you're doing the dishes or having a shower.
The point of it is to make you think, make you question more, make you a little bit more involved.
Yeah.
In what's going on?
Give you a basis point for which to get yourself involved. I think, right?
And maybe we can get you to use the internet appropriately.
Yes. For God's
to your advantage.
For God's sakes, please do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, seriously. Yeah. I mean, this is it doesn't take much more than just having a couple extra minutes and an inquiring mind is really what it is. You have options. The options are out there for you. The information's out there for you. It's right there. You just might have to dig a little bit for it. The good news about it is that once you dig once you find something that's legitimate and credible, you can continue returning to it. Right? So the work only has to be done once, but it's incumbent on you to do the work to keep yourself informed about legitimate and to form a legitimate understanding about things. For sure.
Perfect.
Yeah, man, for sure.
All right.
Till next week, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
Oh, dude, always a pleasure.
Thanks for listening, everybody. It's been the Luke Hamilton Tonight podcast. I'm Luke Hamilton, sitting here with Neal Dunn,
Yeah, buddy.
having a damn good time on a Friday night.
Damn good time.
We'll see you later.